across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon to you. Just gone 4 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Thank you to Ian Collins. I forgot his second name there. He's off to my house to see my wife, and he's back tomorrow afternoon at your place from 1 o'clock on the home of free speech and common sense. Thank you so much indeed for making it Talk. As I've said, this is your chance. It's an open forum. We're not here to alienate. We're not here to pass judgment. We're allowed to say, you know, what is your opinion? Be not scared to give it. 3 ways as ever of contacting the show, my friends. 0344 499 1000 is the only telephone number you need. Jodie is back doing her stuff, strutting her stuff in the 40-degree sun in London. How hot is it with you, by the way? Oh, my Lord. I had the usual attempt at coming in on the train. Even I didn't, Ryan, think I would hear this as an excuse today. Ladies and gentlemen, we've stopped at Surbiton because a train, due to the heat, has broken down at Vauxhall. That isn't really the problem. We sent another train to pick up the passengers from the one that broke down at Vauxhall. And that too has broken down because of the heat. So all the power's been switched off, so enjoy Surbiton, but you can't get out, because that's against the rules. So I made it by the skin of my teeth. 0344 499 1000. Text as ever. 87222. Please do, if you want to message the show, start your message with the word Talk. In a second, Zia Yusuf, head of Doge, of course, for Reform UK, ex-party chairman. You remember a couple of weeks ago, he walked away and then came back, very much in the fold. Loads to talk to him about. Also this hour, Noah Hoffman, political correspondent with the Sun newspaper. For her take on everything that's going on ahead of that big benefits bill discussion, judgment day, whatever you want to call it tonight. Keir Starmer, however you dress it up, you know, a year ago on Friday, walked into 10 Downing Street with one huge majority. I mean, 180 plus. 12 months later, this man is scrabbling around, attempting to head off a revolt that could see his authority severely damaged. As I said to Ian Collins, you know, MPs will always stick the boot in to prime ministers, but when a flagship piece of legislation is in danger of being, well, killed off, as it says there on the screen, then you've got to question the entire government. There's been so much about this government that I'm just talking to Ricky in the office. He just doesn't seem to have antennae, does he, Starmer? You know, surely you would have somebody around you, or the political nous, to go, the pensioners are going to be really hacked off with me. Yes, the farmers are going to loathe me. Yes, the people who are going to have their PIP taken away are going to be really, really upset. Would love your thoughts on that. We'll bring it to you throughout the evening here on Talk with Kevin Sullivan, of course, 0344 499 1000. As Sir Keir Starmer faces Judgment Day on that welfare bill. That story from the weekend, the chief rabbi, has called for the BBC to be censured. He thinks it's a national disgrace and a national shame that Bob Villan, with that revolting, you know, death to the IDF chant, that it was allowed to go through. We broke the news, I think, about 5 o'clock yesterday, that Tim Davie, the head of the BBC, was at Glastonbury, was told about what had happened with Bob Villan on stage, and then sort of said, well, I don't want it on demand, but just leave it on whatever it is for 5 hours, which is streaming, which is an extraordinary decision. Many of the newspapers today, certainly The Sun, talking in great words about how, you know, either Davie needs to resign or somebody has to. This is unacceptable. Also, when you imagine, you know, and I've said this before, people always copy, don't they? Palestine Action, that revolting organisation that have made absolutely their position known. They were shouting the same thing, death to the idea, outside a court, emulating entirely what that man on screen did on Saturday. And we get back to what we were discussing yesterday. That's surely a hate crime, isn't it? Surely, in anybody's mind, we go back to it, I suppose. Lucy Connolly said some terrible things about the Muslim community. She's in jail. That man, Bob Villan, said some terrible things about the Jews, about the IDF, and he's a free man. I just think it's an incredibly bad balance, and again, something that the government, you know, can and is absolutely exposed on and criticised about. 0344 499 1000 on that. And more on that Sun exclusive, the crackdown on illegal delivery drivers. You can arrive in this country and within 10 minutes you can get a job with Just Eats or Uber Eats, or you might just have eaten. I don't know the names of the rest of them. And the Sun's expose led to immigration cops even beginning to end this with a crackdown, which is really good. Loads on the way, but please, if you want to be on 0344 499 1000, hello to Sean in Bridlington. I got off as a summer season once in Bridlington, which is like saying your career's over. It's just 17 degrees here in Bridlington. The highest it's been all day is 20, says Sean, who patently needs to get out more. 7 minutes past 4. We're live across the UK. I promise you the main man, Zia Yusuf, head of Doge at Reform UK. Zia, good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
Afternoon, Jeremy. Very well. How are you?
Well, last time we spoke, and then 24 hours later, because I do Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, it all went Pete Tong, and you're back now, and Doge is happening. How are you? You all right?
Very well. Very well.
Good, good. There's a lot of work, I guess, for you to do. I just want to throw so much at you. I had the excellent Sarah Potion on yesterday, who was talking many, many things. Today is Judgment Day on the welfare bill. Do you in Reform find it extraordinary that a man that waltzed into 10 Downing Street not 12 months ago, Zia, with a huge majority, has misread the situation, or rather the vibe in this country so dramatically on so many occasions, this being the latest example?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, but I'm not actually that surprised, to be honest, Jeremy, because it's in keeping with his entire prime ministership. You know, he, as you said, he waltzed into number 10 with a walloping majority. I mean, it's actually extraordinary that he's struggling to pass a bill, to just cut the benefits bill, frankly, by a whisker in the grand scheme of things. Right? We're talking about $5 billion on a number that is monstrously compounding and is going to bankrupt the country. If it keeps growing at this rate, it's going to bankrupt the country several times over. And even doing that, he can't, because people now see him for what he is. Even his own MPs see him as a man who doesn't believe in anything. And look, you know, the interesting thing, Jeremy, is that one of the reasons his popularity has collapsed with such extremity isn't because people like me or you disagree with his policies, right? It's because nobody really knew what he stood for when he ran, and therefore he has nobody to turn to and say, look, I'm doing the thing that you want me to do. And look, the reality is we all know the reason our MPs are going to vote against this is because this doesn't go anywhere near enough to ensure that that welfare bill comes down.
The thing about
14 years.
Well, this is my point, and I've always tried to balance it. I've said this for a year. I don't believe that Sir Keir Starmer won the 2024 election. I believe the Tories had so lost the ear of the British public that they could have offered anything. I mean, Sunak in the last couple of weeks went, oh, GDP up to 2.5%. Last 2 weeks of the election campaign. To me, they could have promised everybody a massive pay cut, a pay increase and a tax cut, and it wouldn't have worked. So I think on 33% he got there by default. And we talk about the Ming Vase policies here, about how you don't have to say anything. And the alarm bells are ringing for me. I've been doing this a long time, because I think if you don't tell people, you can't make your tent so big. You can't promise everybody so much without, with the greatest of respect, when push comes to shove and the reality strikes, you're going to find it incredibly difficult. But for me, it's the lack of political nous. Surely you know there are 10 million pensioners. You're going to hack them off. Surely you know that farmers, they're not rich. They provide the food for our country. They're the lifeblood. It's about generationally passing it down. Doesn't get that, hacks them off. Veterans, it's almost like he doesn't have the gumption to understand how bad his decisions are.
No, I'm actually going to slightly disagree with you on that, Jeremy. My diagnosis, I think you're giving too much credit. I think the diagnosis here is this is a man who does not believe in anything, and that's why he keeps U-turning. So the point I would make is that, look, if he came out and said, it was a whole political calculation, I think, to take away the winter fuel allowance, because their brilliant strategists would have said, look, pensioners don't really vote for us anyway. And that's what the data shows. Take the winter fuel away. And then Rachel Reeves came out and lied and talked about this black hole and how, quote, tough decisions need to be made. How many times do we hear that? And then they said we had no choice. If we didn't take the winter fuel allowance away, there would be a run on the pound, the sky was going to fall. And then, lo and behold, after so much of an outcry, they U-turn. Yeah. And it turns out they're going to get the winter fuel back. Okay. So, and this is why they go down in the polls when they do these U-turns, Jeremy, because it just shows, well, hold on. If now it's all right to give it back, you were obviously lying about all of your reasons.
Completely.
Before. So
I don't think he's the right person. No, I get that. I think the criticism will quite rightly be aimed at Sir Keir Starmer, which is you almost did nothing to get to number 10 and you've been found out because you're a vacuum. I think he's so wrapped up in the left-wing human rights lawyer BS, in my humble opinion, that they don't manage to make a decision. Our greatest leaders, right, have been unpopular. Margaret Thatcher was loathed when she brought out the clothes shop. Tony Blair was loathed early doors. But you have to have, do you not? So you have to have a belief and a view and something that you can say, this is what I'm going to do. Which is why I always bring it back to the orange man, baby. I don't agree with everything that Donald Trump does, but when Donald Trump says he's going to do something, whether it's shutting the border. I was on air yesterday, we'll come on to this, that vile human being at Glastonbury. While the government were dithering and going, oh, I'm not so sure, Donald Trump woke up and 20 minutes later, the Deputy Secretary of State had revoked their visas and they're not allowed to tour in the US. Good on you, Donald. Well, that's what we need in this country, strong leadership, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Again, regardless of whether you agree with Donald Trump or not, he acts decisively and he acts consistently in line with how you would expect. And you just nailed it, right? That's what leadership is. Leadership is, hey, I've got this vision. Here's where we're going. We're all in this together. Get behind me and let's go. And by the way, I would argue Nigel is the first political leader in this country for decades, actually, who has had a vision. And that's why we're so behind him. It's why the more people see of Nigel, interesting, you look at all the polls and the approvals and disapprovals and unsures, the more his unsures go down, the more his favourables go up. And that's the opposite for Kemi, the opposite for Starmer.
No, I agree. The thing about Nigel is, and I've said this for a long, long time, I want somebody to stand and say, listen, here I am, Watson, I like a fag, I like a pint of beer, I've been divorced. I'm not talking about Nigel. I've made mistakes, they'll write this, they'll attack me on that, but here's my blueprint, this is what I think. If you come with me, OK, I promise you, whatever is said and done, I will do it. There'll be good days and bad days. If it works, fair play, and if it don't, I'll do one. That's all I want. I think we've become so wrapped up in politicians must be whiter than white, and then half of them are into rent boys and cocaine and disappoint us because they're not that intelligent. And so I sort of think that somebody like Farage...
Half it's a Conservative estimate.
Well, I had a very long court case, and I remember when it was over, my barrister, who was one of the best, Neil Shelton, he represented the families in the Manchester bombings, he said, the only difference between the Labour Party and the Tory Party, Carl, he said, is that the Tory Party like cocaine and rent boys and the Labour Party like money. And I thought that was actually quite an interesting analogy, to be fair. So I never judged them beyond that. But no, somebody like Nigel, and it might be Nigel, it might not. We hope so. But it's about having, if you like, just the gumption, the balls to say, this is where I'm taking you. You voted for me. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And can I just go back to something I 100% agree with you on? You know, the whole Starmer, he didn't really win the election. Yeah. The evidence of that is that he won fewer votes in 2024 in the general election than Jeremy Corbyn. Both times Corbyn ran, which is always why I've told, that McSweeney's an electoral genius and he's got all these geniuses around them. No real evidence for that. And, the Tories, exactly what you said. You remember, you cast your minds back to Sunak during that general election campaign. He could have promised anything. Do you remember all the crazy, you talk about national service all of a sudden. In reality, what voters are doing, whether they realise it or not, what they're trying to work out is that the sum they're doing in their head is how much do I like these policies multiplied by the likelihood I perceive they're actually going to do them. And that second ratio was 0 for the Tories. And I would argue with Nigel is that, and again, all the polling shows this, Nigel is going to do the things that he says he is going to do. And it's up to the British people. We're going to take a very different strategy to Labour in terms of the next general election. We are going to tell the British people what we plan to do. And we will leave it up to the British people.
What are you going to do then? All right, let's play that game. What are you going to do? He walks up 10 Downing Street. And I've been very honest with everybody that listens and watches this. I was a Tory voter all my life. I voted Reform. I want nothing more. But he walks up 10 Downing Street. The first thing he needs to do is leave the ECHR. Legally, he's challenged. The blob... Yeah. I mean, we won't speak. I hadn't been introduced at that point, but forever in my mind will be about 18 months ago, and I'm doing this show, and they're telling me, and you're smiling because you know what's coming, that people in the Home Office who I'm paying tax to employ have decided, and I wasn't a fan of Rwanda, that they don't like Rwanda, so they're using more of my taxpayer money to get a left-wing human rights law to take a democratically elected government to court. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute. You're civil servants. So how is Nigel Farage going to deal with the blob who seemingly, most people would say this to you, run this country? Is he going to sack them all? Because I would.
Yeah, well, we've already seen this. We've had first-hand experience, shots fired by the blob. You may have seen there was news this week of the chief executive of Warwickshire Council who's basically declared themselves the supreme ruler and monarch of Warwickshire, told the duly elected representative of the people, I'm not taking down the pride flag. I'm going to hoist the Ukrainian flag. I run the council, not you. And she earns well north of £200,000 a year. Now, you know, our councillors are looking at the actions that are available to them there. But the reality is we need total root and branch transformation of how this country is run. Look, I have a strong view on this, by the way, that it is up to politicians. Look, politicians are the ones who get to legislate and change the laws. And the laws have to be set. And this is what reform will do. The most activist left-wing judge in the world should not be able to prevent a Kenyan rapist who's been convicted multiple times of raping women from being deported, for example. To your point, by the way, I've seen this time and again already, even in local government, the absolute scam within a scam within a scam of, you know, the council lawyer hiring external lawyers who all at the taxpayer's dime. But again, the buck stops with the politicians. So we've got work that has already started. We're going to have lots of new legislation to ensure that this stuff can't happen. And we're also going to repeal a whole bunch of laws. Even leaving the ECHR, Jeremy, will not be enough. The only reason the ECHR is used by these activist lawyers and judges is because it's the lowest hanging fruit. You've still got the 1951 UN Refugee Treaty, all of these treaties that we have to disapply specific aspects, specific articles of those laws. Only then will we be able to, for example, have true sovereignty over our borders. And that goes throughout the entirety of government. I
mean, it's great. I could chat to you all day. The borders thing, I mean, again, I'd like more to hear from Reform. But I mean, you know, we've talked on this show, we were talking about the incredible investigative bit that the Sun did, that exposing the fact that you can arrive here where we've absolutely sod all processing and you can somehow manage to get on a WhatsApp, I don't even understand any of this, and get a job as a delivery driver and go to a migrant hotel. And I always bring it back to Betty, who ran me from Bury. People take the mickey, who's 76, husband died, she's paid her taxes, she can't see a doctor, she can't see a dentist, she can't eat her house, and she's not racist, she's not far right, and she says, hold on a minute, what is happening? I don't understand. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, well, what sort of deterrent would you have? To me, it's really simple, Zia, and I'd love Reform's take on this. I don't think, I mean, apart from turning the boats around once or twice with the Navy, which would send a message, I'd stop making it so goddamn attractive. I don't understand why we lay out a benefit system to people who are patently taking us for idiots. But more than that, when you're skint and you can't afford to provide for the people who are paying into it, that makes no logical sense to me at all.
100%. And that's that you've just hit the nail on the head. It's not like British people are averse to making sacrifices for the greater good, but how can you look them in the eyes when there seems to be infinite money for foreign citizens whose first act upon coming here was to break our laws, and no money left for British pensioners who paid into the system their entire lives? And by the way, you know that point about how illegal migrants who come here by small boat are receiving, basically they get wellness retreats. Did you see that? We pushed some stuff out on our Twitter a couple of weeks ago, myself and Nigel, about how there were these wellness retreats where illegal migrants are going to, and they're basically complaining about the food. They're being asked about what sort of activities they'd like to do. We've actually had evidence.
What? Here we go. Yeah, I tried this afternoon to start really calmly. What activities? Bloody work. That might be a good start, but they'll tell me all the leftists they can't work.
They're getting taken to rugby sessions. And by the way, that's just the start of it. We found evidence Kent County Council has been spending taxpayers' money taking asylum seekers to the cinema, buying stuff for them from JD Sports, taking them trampolining, skateboarding. I mean, for real, like, we've got hard evidence of this sort of stuff, and it's happening writ large across the country. How many people listening to this struggle to find the time or make ends meet to take their own kids to the trampoline park or skateboarding or to the cinema, right? I mean, that's the state of the cost of living crisis in this country.
And do you know what it says? And I had a call the other day from a guy, and he was actually really upset, and he said to me, I'm beginning to question the way I live my life. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, because I pay my taxes, I don't break the law. I've never asked for a handout. I barely can have anything apart from feed my kids and pay my bills. And I'm looking around me thinking, they're taking the mickey out of me. And I think that, from a political point of view, that message from doing a show like this and speaking to loads and loads of people is, the British people need and want a politician that actually understands, that resonates with, not somebody that's so far removed. But I was told once by Baroness Wolsey, who used to be high up in the Tory party, I remember having a go at it about something, and she said to me, the thing is, Jeremy, you come into politics and you have great aspirations, and then the machinations of Whitehall and the three-line whip and the party and the desire to climb up means you play ball. I just think we need brave politicians, and hopefully Nigel is that man, right?
He's the bravest of the lot, and not just him. You know, the other MPs that we have. I mean, look, that's why I was always of the view that the only way this country was going to get turned around is through a completely new vehicle, right? Basically, a completely insurgent startup. And, you know, in a year, we've gone from, 12% in the polls to north of 30%. And Nigel's now the bookmaker's favourite. We've got a long way to go, but you better be darn sure we're going to fight every single battle. And I think people are lining up now behind us, and that's what you see. Look, I've already seen this. The more I walk around these local councils, I just see even, you know, the good people even just get consumed by the system because the system is so powerful. But, you know, we've tried to create incentive structure reform where the way to rise to the top of reform is to be courageous and do the things that you promised voters you would do. And if you do that, people are going to be so refreshed by it that we're going to do very well.
My old mum always told me that if you want to do something in life, have a go, and even if it doesn't work out, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I was honest, I was open, and I had a go. Zia, it's always an absolute pleasure, my friend, to have you on. We appreciate you taking the time. I had a Doge for Reform UK. The excellent Zia Yusuf, live and exclusive on Talk Drive. What is it, 4:23? We're live across the United Kingdom. PIP, my blood is boiling. That's not, never mind. 87222, start your message with the word talk. For that, call Jodie right now, 0344 499 1000. Next, Noah Hoffman, political correspondent from the Current Bun, The Sun. He is next on Talk Drive.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe it.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 4:27. Listen, I'm not getting paid for this or anything, but I'm going to do it. Can I say to the boys, the Dorset fence that did they're unbelievable human beings. Unbelievable. One looks like Paul Scholes, he's a Man United fan. The other, I'm not going into too much detail. Harrison, you're a legend. Boys, thank you so much indeed. Dorset fence, great job. We love you. Tag says, is somebody actually called Tag, right? I've had enough. I can't get treated for my heart problems. I can't get a dentist appointment. Nothing this government will do for me. They're lying about everything. I need help. Jenny's in Bicester. I heard somebody on the radio the other day say Boychester. Yes. It is the unelected that run this country, whether it's at local or national level, whether through quangos or quasi-governmental departments, and this will never change. Whoever is in government, if voting ever changed anything, they would not let us vote. That's interesting. Brian, a very good afternoon. I think the wool is being pulled over our eyes. Does the government really need to pass a bill to reduce welfare spending, or does it just need to instruct the DWP to administer the thing properly, starting with face-to-face assessments and removing PIP from any and everyone milking the system? Welfare is a safety net, not absolutely, Brian, not a choice of life. We'll go to Hull. Phil, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got me?
Great show, Jeremy. Yeah, what I say is that the whole country's in a turmoil. I mean, the judges, every judge lets you down. They don't deport anybody. They just give them free to stay. We've got hotels in all full of these people. None of them's going to be good for the country. The young children, the people 16 and 17 looking for jobs, they're going to be up against these people for the years to come. And every politician has failed us. We had 14 years of failures from the Tories, and this bag of fog at the moment are just terrible. It's just nothing.
I think it's really important, the point you made about the Tories, and I made it earlier to Zia Yusuf, because I don't believe that Keir Starmer would have been elected if the Tories hadn't been so appalling and the British government, the British people had stopped listening to the Tories. But you're right, he didn't have to say anything. I said it throughout the election. You have to understand socialism. I remember 1979 and that bleeding old. And this is not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. And you're right. People are genuinely concerned. I think the British people are very fair. I think the British people have always been really fair. But I think they're at the end of their tether. I think they're going, hold on a minute, I can't do this, I can't do that. I feel like a second-class citizen in my own country. And I've got a Prime Minister who, if you complain, you get called far right, unless you're at Glastonbury when you get ignored. Great to have you on. Phil in Hull, thank you. 0344 499 1000. We're trying to get hold of Noah Hoffman, political correspondent from The Sun. We're having a few technical difficulties, that's all right. Simon Dinage, good afternoon. If we are now paying Mauritius for the Chagos Islands, can't we now use them as a processing centre for illegal migrants? Lovely, Rachel. I love Zia Yusuf. Can't wait to Reform take over the Senedd. Please come to Wales more often. They're going to take over the Senedd, apparently. Keith says, I think Starmer thought he could do what he wanted, as no one would ever vote for the Tories again. He never quite believed how well and how quickly Reform would grow. Let's head to... I wish I could read the screen. Ashford, Lenny, you're on Talk Drive. A very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm tickety-boo, thank you, Jeremy.
Tickety-boo. Right, come on, I'm a busy man. What do you want?
Well, I think the quickest way to repair our politics is to make the Speaker of the House of Commons fit for purpose.
What do you mean by that?
Well, at the dispatch box, all our politicians either lie or don't answer a question when they're supposed to be accountable. If they had to answer the question correctly and tell the truth, that would mean they'd be accountable at the dispatch box.
I would go further, actually. The more I watch of the Commons, Lenny, and the more I see this happening, I think to myself, do you know what? I'm not altogether... They seem to just go through the motions. I'm not sure... I don't know whether it's a lack of respect for the voters. I don't know whether it's... Maybe it's what somebody said. Starmer's got this huge majority. Johnson got an 80-seat majority. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I will tell you one thing before I head to Noah Hoffman. The British people have learnt that their voice matters, that actually these politicians are on a sticky wicket for the first time. Whatever party, you need to listen to the British people. 4:30, we're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. We eventually say a very good afternoon to Noah Hoffman, political correspondent at The Sun. How are you, Noah?
I'm very hot, but you know, slowly getting through. We don't have nice aircon here, like in the talk building, sadly.
Well, you see, the thing you have to do, it'd be nice to see your face. I don't understand why it takes so long for me not to be able to see it. But I will say this to you. Why didn't you come here? Are you in the Sun's offices?
Yes.
Well, come downstairs. I've got beautiful aircon. I've got pina coladas. Everything's fine.
Well, you know who to speak to, Jeremy, to give me that permission for next time to leave the Sun office.
You mean the new boss?
The new big dog, yes, exactly.
How is Big Dog Elsom treating you? Is he all right?
He continuously tells us that we've never had it so good.
This is brilliant. I love it. Fantastic.
So I would be too scared to suggest anything otherwise.
Lovely to have you on. I wanted to. You're in Westminster. I didn't realise that you're not in the building. I just wanted to get your take, really, in terms of the sense of what's happening today in Westminster. This benefit, this welfare bill, the vote is tonight. We've read an awful lot in the paper, Noah, about how, he's scrabbling around. At one point, they were talking upwards of 120 rebels. I think at the beginning of the weekend, they felt like the concessions were enough. But there's a lot of people saying that whatever happens tonight, many will vote against, and this is a major shake to his authority. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's a huge embarrassment. It shows that Sir Keir Starmer doesn't have control of all these backbenchers who are meant to be elected, actually, in 2024 as so-called stormtroopers. I mean, this goes well beyond the usual subjects. But to make matters worse, we had these major concessions to sort of quell the rebellion from around 120 Labour MPs down to around 40, 50. But there's actually now talk that even more concessions will be made at the 11th hour, still because of fears of abstention. So the whips just have no grip on how big this rebellion is and what they need to do to sort of save face for Keir Starmer, although the chance to do that very much passed a long time ago. So we're actually looking like there might be another concession on the way too in the next few hours.
Do you think there's any chance, Noah, of him losing this vote tonight, or is it just actually a massive dent to his popularity and his authority within the Parliamentary Labour Party, I guess?
Yes, so I think the whips will literally do whatever it takes to ensure that there isn't any chance of him losing, even if that means effectively rolling back on pretty much the entire thing, which, some may argue is the same thing as killing the bill anyway. So I don't think he will lose, but absolutely this is a huge humiliation. It's very embarrassing. And the fact that Prime Minister and his team didn't have the foresight to, get a grip on this before it really exploded and got out of control. I mean, I'm just watching in the Commons now, and some of the language used by MPs from his own side, what they're accusing the government of, talking about, people committing suicide, talking about them, being a sort of cosplaying Tory austerity. These are his MPs. That is really embarrassing. And how can you convince the country that, you're in control of their finances and in control of the economy if you can't even convince your own side?
I'm going to take that word from you today because I think that's utterly brilliant. I keep talking about his political antennae or lack of it, how he doesn't seem to be able to smell out what the hell people are going to think. Foresight, great word. Anybody with a brain cell, Noah, would have gone, not a good idea to upset 10 million pensioners, right? Anybody with a brain cell would have gone, no, the farming community isn't rich. Actually, they pass it down. They provide food. They're actually the lifeblood of this country. Anybody with foresight would have gone, I shouldn't have my veterans on the streets while migrants are coming to 4-star hotels and having their backsides wiped. But he doesn't have that foresight. He can't seemingly smell it out. And this is just, within 12 months, another massive example of his inability, I think, to call it correctly first time. And it's, I never thought 12 months ago they'd be this much of a shambles, did you?
No, I didn't. In fact, I thought around the time of the election that they were sort of on a high, and because their election operation, having been in, with both the Tory bus, the so-called campaign bus, and on the Labour bus, I mean, there was a huge difference with Labour being so smooth, so slick, so on top of detail, They just performed really well in the election if you compare them to the Tories. But how that has all sort of spiraled out of control so quickly is actually probably one for the history books.
I couldn't agree
because
more.
I do think this is one of the worst starts of government I think we've seen in a very long time.
By a mile. Can I just also, loads in the Sun about this today and yesterday. Today the chief rabbi has called for the BBC, the way they broadcast that Bob Villain vile IDF death chant as a national shame. I mean, I'm not asking you to get political. I mean, I ranted on all day yesterday. We've got a woman who wrote some particularly nasty things about the Muslim community who was put in jail for 31 months when, frankly, I would have thought the idea for Lucy Connolly would be some community service with the Muslim community. But this vile piece of whatever is allowed to stand on stage and basically call for people to kill Jews. And what was really interesting, because I can see him on screen now with Gulf of America on his hat, was they meandered yesterday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday, the British government. Donald Trump woke up, and 20 minutes after he woke up yesterday, they revoked that vile human being's visa and said, I don't want you in America. That's what we want in this country. Strong, strong leadership, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath for that, especially when we have a particularly weak and pathetic cabinet minister in Lord Hermer, not even an elected politician, obsessed with international law. Do you think China or America will give a F word about that? I mean, it is just embarrassing. So
Lord Hermer, wasn't he he's one of Starmer's longest old allies. He's a left-wing human rights lawyer. He's the one who advocated Lucy Connolly stayed in jail, isn't he?
Exactly. And whenever anyone mentions two-tier justice, Lord Hermer is the first to get on his high horse and suggest those people, are actually, quote, disgusting, unquote. But how you can look at the case of Lucy Connolly and look at the case of Bob Villain and think that everything is going smoothly and fairly in the justice system, you just can't. And you know what? You can, if everyone was being locked up over very incendiary language, then that would be a different conversation. But it's the fact that there are different punishments for different comments and different people that is really the crux of this problem.
Couldn't put it better myself. And also congrats again to the Sun. Cops have begun cracking down on those illegal migrants who've been working as delivery drivers. We covered this on Monday and last week. Great bit of work by Thomas Godfrey and the team, and actually making a difference, doesn't it? Hasn't the Home Secretary said good on the Sun today?
Yeah, she has, and so I think the delivery companies as well are thanking us for this investigation. I'm not sure that's a very genuine thank you, because they, I don't know, may enjoy the cheap labour that they get off the back of this. But we had the Home Secretary host a roundtable with these companies. We had an immigration raid, which there's a big spread covering all of those details in the Sun. It was a really fantastic piece of investigative journalism by our news reporter Thomas Godfrey, and it just goes to show how fantastic journalism and investigations into what's going on with the illegal migrant crisis can actually produce results. And we have seen the Home Secretary move quickly off the back of our reporting.
You're amazing. Please come on every week. Don't let me down. I'm going to phone Elsom on my private line now and say, get her a fan. It's an absolute outrage. Noah Hoffman.
Ask him for a pay rise for me as well.
I'll do that as well. Noah Hoffman, political correspondent at The Sun. Can you get me Jack Elsom? I need a fan and a pay rise. It's 20 to 5.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
18 minutes to 5, we're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk. I just said to Sam, how's it going today? He said, everybody's out enjoying the sun. I would like to repeat 45 minutes after I did it before, a massive thank you to the anonymous person who sent me, happy 60th birthday. End of life care goes wrong. It's my birthday on Monday. It's not great, is it? It's great. That's all I've had so far, not even a biscuit. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. We're live across the United Kingdom. Quickly to the phone lines before we speak to Tom Jones, senior. What does a senior fellow mean? What is like? That's what they call me. By the way, right? Guess what? Have I told you what happened to me the other day? You two. It was at the weekend. I got a text message. Oh my God, I forgot to tell everybody. This is brilliant. Hold on a second, everybody else, right? It's brilliant. Joe, Saturday morning, get a text. My wife wet herself, right? Do you know what it said? It was from the DWP. Have you applied for your winter fuel allowance for 2025 in the winter? So there you are. Ask yourselves that. I can get the 300 quid. Nobody else can. Not that I'm going to ask for it. Look at Ryan's face. No, I'm not getting a bus pass, but I'm getting a train pass, and it's called a senior rail card. I'm getting that on Monday. You can shut up, Jodie. Honestly, senior rail card. And I don't look 60, do I? You're all fine. 0344 499 1000. We'll go to Birmingham. Mark will be nice to me. Do I look 60, Mark?
Absolutely not, mate. 18. Can I have a fiver now?
Did you say 80?
18.
18? That's not right. Definitely not right. I mean, my face is frozen, but I don't look 18. What you got for me?
I'm just going to say, mate, I think there's a space for a Deliveroo type business with DBS-checked drivers. Because at the moment, we've got people coming over in rubber dinghies who are now delivering food. We have no idea who they are or where they come from. But if somebody started that business, I think they could make a nice little earner because people would know that whoever was delivering the food was kosher.
I don't... I mean, listen, I just heard Noah Hoffman make a very good point. There was a big splash in the Sun today as a result of the Sun's exclusive, and, you know, these people have been rounded up quite rightly. But I would also point the finger massively at these large corporations. You're not going to tell me they don't know that cash is going out and is being paid to these people, and it's cheap labour. I think they should be. I said when this happened, not only would I have taken the door in on those migrant hotels at 6 a.m. in the morning with the police, right? I'd have frog-marched the CEOs of those big companies up to Downing Street, and I'd have made sure they were sanctioned and fined. I think it's a disgraceful way to go, don't you?
Definitely, Jeremy. Yeah, no question.
Don't know what's happening to this. Oh, hold on. Michael Anstey says the fuel allowance tax is a scam, Carl. You're an idiot. Brilliant. Michael in Birmingham, thank you very much, Steve. 4:45. You can get on like he did. 03. I was excited about that. I was going to get 300 quid. I was going to give it to Jodie because she... Never mind. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. We say a very good afternoon to Tom Jones. It's not unusual. Senior fellow at the Centre for Migration Control. A very good afternoon. Here he is. Look, here he is. Look. Mick Hucknall's back on the show. Yeah.
You can never resist, can you, Jeremy?
Well, honestly, have a look. You look like that mad guy that annoyed me on Saturday. Have you heard what happened to me on Saturday at the kids' school?
No.
It was the leaving do for Henry at Lord Wandsworth College. Happy to announce it every single day because they hacked me off. They brought on some bloke from the BBC, Andy Zaltman, and his bald with ginger spiky bit. Funny for 4 minutes, and then proceeded to tell 11 to 18-year-olds that they that all the grandparents and parents had ruined their lives by leaving the European Union, that Donald Trump should be impeached, that net zero was the future, and that the Labour Party was great. And I'm sitting there thinking...
that was a laugh.
Well, I'm sitting there and thinking to myself, and there's you against private education, but you're taking a fee on a Saturday to be the voice. But nobody asked me my opinion, so I kept quiet. Donald Trump, interestingly, right now, is speaking at a new migration detention centre in Florida. On a serious note, we've seen the Sun's exclusive this week, Tom, which is done some wonderful work. We've got illegals working in fast food delivery within 10 minutes of landing on these shores. We've got fury by the bucket load from people in this country who are suddenly realising that channel migrants are being offered things that they can't get, like free eye tests, like prescriptions, dental treatment, wellness trips, for God's sake. And we've got to wake up in the morning and see in the Sun and see online selfies taken by migrants on packed dinghies as they dodge cops and make it to the United Kingdom. I despair. I'm being completely serious. And so do many people.
Yeah, we're in a really, really bad situation at the minute, and things are getting a lot worse under Starmer at the minute, which actually, interestingly, he has admitted to that the Channel crisis is accelerating. So I think estimates for this year are 50,000 for the first time migrants crossing. And obviously, I mean, there's been some great work by The Sun, as you've already spoken. What that doesn't cover, that investigation, is that a lot of these bike couriers are working illegally but in home office accommodation, and a lot of their earnings are actually going to repay debts to people smugglers so that they could get here in the first place. And obviously, you're quite right, most people don't realise the huge range of benefits that asylum seekers get whilst their claims are being processed, which takes a lot longer than most European countries. I remember seeing a video from the asylum hotel in Stockport, where there was a public meeting, and residents expressed a lot of concern about the pressure on public services that new arrivals would place. And the MP thought he had a great answer, because he said, no, don't worry, they won't place any pressure on local services because we're giving them all private healthcare. It's absolutely crazy. And these are huge pull factors for migrants.
There's your word. That's why I get angry. It shouldn't be a pull to come to a country that is financially on its knees and cannot provide the services to its own people who are paying for it. That's why the man on screen, Donald Trump, is flying in America. Whether love him or loathe him, he does what he says he's going to do. And I say it every single time I see him. I remember about 2 weeks after the inauguration, Tom, there was a woman with some children on the Mexican border crying, and they were interviewing her, and they said, what's the matter? She said, well, there's no point in going now. He won't let me in. I'm in the studio going, yes, because that's what he said. Because that's how it should be. But we don't have that here, do we? We don't have it. It's too easy, but more than that, it's too bloody attractive. And unless we make it less attractive, I'm not into deterrence. The only deterrent you need is 3 Navy ships to turn away a few boats, and then you need to say, you're not getting Jack. You're not coming here. You're going into a boat, and I'm taking you to the Ascension Islands, or the Orkney Islands. Nothing against the Orkneys before you text me again. I'm being completely serious. You're not setting foot in this country if you don't have a legal right to be here. We are no longer a charity case.
No, that's completely right. And I think that's really the steel and the iron that we're missing in the current government. Labour are in a really tight spot on the boats because basically because of their left-wing base, they really don't want to criminalise migrants themselves. And that means that they can't crack down on the benefits that migrants are receiving. So they can't really address the pull factors because of what that will do to their base vote.
Will anybody get a hold of this? Will anybody get hold of this? Just briefly, I'd love to have more time, but looking at that man on screen, Donald Trump, we'll hear from him in a sec, but can anybody have the courage in this country to say, I don't care about the blob, I don't care about upsetting certain parts of the mainstream media, the British public are calling for something to be done about this?
Maybe the man on screen could do it. Maybe, I'm not saying me, but maybe it could be somebody like me.
It's very good. Get off. Thank you very much indeed. Tom Jones, the Senior Fellow at the Centre for Immigration Control. Let's go to the ad break. Let's see if we can maybe play Trump live afterwards. Something interesting he's saying. 10 to 5 on Talk Drive.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe it.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 6 minutes to 5. We're live across the UK. We were going to bring you Donald Trump live from Florida talking about his new migrant detention centre. He's called it the, what was it? The Alcatraz Alligator. Alligator Alcatraz. But in true broadcasting fashion, we've lost the feed. But Donald Trump doing what Donald Trump said he would do. Build a new migration detention centre. If you are not legal, you are going to the detention centre, then you will be deported. I am absolutely prepared to argue with anybody, any of those politically correct people that go, it's not fair. I'll tell you what's not fair. Get out of London, go past, seriously, the M25 corridor, go to the north of England and ask people who have worked all their lives how they feel about the fact that they're at the back of the queue, because they don't like it. Good afternoon to Rennick from Gateshead. Did you know that once you hit 60, you also get free prescriptions as well as your bus pass and your train pass? Thanks very much. Jez says, Rachel, how old are you in a couple of days? I don't think you've mentioned it much. On the BBC, this is interesting, was it 2 years ago at the World Cup in Qatar, Jez, that they pulled the coverage of the opening ceremony due to migrant working conditions, and yet this abomination on stage at Glastonbury, that's Bob Vylan, is allowed full airtime and advocating the killing of the IDF. Hypocrisy beyond belief. I will no longer be paying my licence fee. I can't condone that, but I understand the frustration with people. 0344 499 1000. We'll head to Glasgow. Grace, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got for me?
I had to sell my mum and dad's flat after my dad passed away. My mum sadly got diagnosed with dementia. So I had to sell her flat to pay her fees of £1,200 a week. Paid everything, all our days, so have I, and I've just walked into the care home today to a bill for £3,509 with a notice of legal proceedings against an 86-year-old woman with dementia because they put in new fire doors in her flat just before she sold it, and now they're chasing her. So good luck with that. Good luck.
Can I ask you, because I get told by a lot of people down here, the thing is, Jez, you don't understand, it's difficult being a migrant. How difficult is it being the daughter of an 80... My mother died of dementia. Yeah. You're having to deal with all of that. She's worked all her life and she's being threatened with proceedings, and you wake up every day and you hear people who come to this country and get, what was it? Free eye tests, prescriptions, dental treatment, glasses and even wigs. How do you feel about that?
If I say, you'll probably get taken off air. I'm beyond angry. I could cry with anger and frustration. I cared for both of them whilst working. I got no help whatsoever. They told me that I would have to put her into respite because I was on my knees at £1,500 a week and then go back to looking after her myself. I got absolutely no help whatsoever. And now I've come into this to £3,500 today for a bill from the council, 86 years of age, and they're taking her to court.
It's an absolute disgrace.
I'll tell you how far I've gone. I used to be a SNP member, and now for the next election I'm voting Reform. That's how far I've swum.
Bless you, my love to your family, sweet. I know it's hard, but you've got to keep the faith. We really appreciate the call. Grace in Glasgow. We'll just quickly go to Paul. Gary, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes, mate, before the news. What you got?
Yeah, hi, Jeremy. And good to hear you well and looking forward to your success. But these migrants coming over and all saying they check their passports away into the sea or whatever, or the IDs, they don't. what happens is the people smugglers take them as payment for them to come over here, and then once they're here, they pay the people smugglers X amount to get the IDs back. Right. Or, as in the case with the gentleman in Zambia, approached me 2 years ago when I was in Zambia, and he is part of the riffraff of Zambia, and he said he's coming over in a boat, and could he use my address to send all his documents and ID, so that when he gets here, he's not you'll tell him he doesn't have his ID, he's thrown it away.
You're South African, right? How long have you lived in the United Kingdom?
I'm Zambian.
Zambian. How long have you lived in the United Kingdom?
Came over in 2011.
Okay. What do you, just very quickly, because I haven't got much time, what do you think of people who, like me, stand up and say, we've always been a kind country and a welcome country, but we're skinned, right? And we are, to the detriment of our own people, putting illegal migrants first. Do you agree with that?
Jeremy, it burns me, it hurts my heart, and every reason why I came back to the UK has been negated by how this government is treating these damn pathetic riffraff migrants.
It's interesting, isn't it? Bless you. Really appreciate you being on. South Africa, great country. Gary in Poole. You see, genuine migrants who come here with a reason and with a right are almost as outraged as the rest of us. And that is not fake outrage, it's genuine. Just drop the ideology and think about the reality is all I'm saying. 0344 499 1000. Did we get that Trump feedback? No, he's speaking that much. The feed's gone. Love him. 87222 is the text number. Start your message with the word talk. We'll do the news at 5. And then Sir John Redwood, former Conservative cabinet minister, who since he left office and since he stopped being an MP is, I mean, not that he was brilliant, he's even more brilliant now. Very happy to talk about anything. Question for John, 0344 499 1000. Sir John Redwood is next on Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of Drive for Tuesday. We are across the UK on the home of free speech and common sense. Common sense! Doesn't take much, does it? Sod the ideology. Think about the common sense. Loads to talk about. So John Redwood on the way. Donald Trump is speaking as we speak at a brand new migration centre in Florida that he's called Alcatraz Alligator Centre or something ridiculous. But listen, doing exactly what he said, and so much anger here about what's going on. Will you shut up, Stuart in Perthshire? Don't panic, Jez. They say 60 is the new 40, so you've still got time to have a few more kids before your health starts failing. I'm not having any more children. That's it. I'm done at 6. I'm not actually here on my birthday. And old Sammy, who's a great lad, he just said to me, "Why aren't you here?" And I said, "Well, because I'm actually going out for lunch with all of my kids." And he went, "That's nice." And I went, "Yeah." And then he went, "Who's paying?" I thought, yeah, that's right, me. 0344 499 1000. We've just had some breaking news. This is really interesting, ahead of Sir John Redwood. The government is now offering... This is all about the welfare bill. You'll know about this. They're trying to cut $5 billion off the welfare bill, which is, to me, just a drop in the ocean. It's all... Everybody's up in arms about PIP, right? The government is now offering further concessions on this controversial bill in a further bid to win over Labour rebels. They still reckon 50 to 70 might vote against them, which would be a massive kick in the bits for Keir Starmer. The offer is around the timing of a promised... Listen to this. This is brilliant. The new offer is around the timing of a promised review into personal independence payments, PIP, to be carried out by the Disabilities Minister Stephen Timms. MPs were concerned that the planned changes to PIP for new claimants were due to come into force before ministers had the chance to act on the review's finding. You ready for this? So the changes are due to come back in force in November 26, which is at the exact time when the new report they've announced will be brought out. So it really is... There's no flipping point. It's the welfare bill magic roundabout. Sir John Redwood, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Yes, it is a disaster, isn't it? The trouble is, a lot of people who need the money have been shaken and really upset by plans being put forward and then cancelled, not properly thought through. Whilst all the time the debt clock is ticking away, this government is borrowing far too much. It came in and said the last lot had been borrowing and spending too much. Well, that was probably true. And what did? They put up both. They increased the amount of spending and the amount of borrowing.
I mean, I didn't really...
You and I have taxes to drive people into the ground or send them out of the country.
Mate, I'm completely with you. And I actually probably, rather outrageously, when they announced this welfare bill, and this is a major part of legislation for Sir Keir Starmer, $5 billion to me doesn't even scratch the surface. And yet by the time he's given these concessions and the time he's wasted, they reckon he'll only save about $1.5 billion, which is peanuts compared to what he's trying to do. But it's just... I wanted to ask you something that I was talking to Noah Hoffman from The Sun about earlier. You were a cabinet minister. Is politics, John, massively about and foresight, smelling it, feeling it, just having that antennae to know what resonates with people? Because this is a government that seemingly have none of that, because almost everything they've done... Winter payments, farmers will be next. They have to U-turn on.
Well, of course. And, you know, as a former Conservative MP, my advice to the government, trying to help them, was to say, you know, I wouldn't have dreamt of taking the winter fuel money away from the pensioners, and I wouldn't have dreamt of coming up with some rather crazy cuts on the disabled without having thought through what you're trying to do. You weren't going to raise very much money doing that. And it was going to upset an awful lot of people. Now, I could see that as a Conservative. You'd think it was deep in Labour instincts that they didn't go around mugging the disabled and taking money away from pensioners on low incomes. And there are so many other targets, Jeremy. You and I in the past have talked about all the money that's going walkabouts and all the waste that this government goes in for. And on the welfare bill itself, and what people are fed up about, indeed they're really angry about, is that we provide all this free welfare for people who come in here illegally, instead of getting on with the promise of actually stopping the boats and smashing the gangs and all the rest of it. And we're now allowing thousands of people to be given a sick note for life, when it would be kinder to say, yes, you've got a few mental health problems, but you know what? Work is a good therapy. You know what? We can help you over this and get you into a job, and you'll have something to be proud of, and you'll earn a better income than we can pay you on benefits. Why can't the government do these useful things instead of waltzing around the world as the Prime Minister does, giving all our assets away and increasing our tax bills by giving money to foreigners, and then coming home and being surprised when the public is completely annoyed and fed up with the whole thing.
And also, I couldn't agree more, but also, because you and I have such great conversations, I'll ask you this, again, as a politician, and I'm sure there are times when you have had to, as a cabinet minister, make decisions you weren't keen on, make speeches you didn't really agree with, and say things for all sorts of reasons. But at the weekend, I'm reading the Sunday Times, right? And he literally, Starmer says, yeah, I think I got the welfare bill wrong because I was concentrating on global affairs. And I'm like, I'm sorry, whatever business you're in, that is tantamount to saying, well, I'm not very good at my job. I'm not up to doing more than one thing at a time. It's an extraordinary admission.
Well, it's either incompetent or it's dishonest, because a lot of us, your show, lots of people, a lot of Labour MPs were telling the government weeks ago that they got this welfare thing wrong and they needed to rethink it before legislating. And the government itself said, you know what, we don't know very much about this, so we're going to get the disability minister to have a good look at it. So why on earth do you crash on with legislation that upsets all sides of the House and a lot of your own party when you're being told that this man isn't listening, he's incompetent, and he really needs to understand that you don't stay Prime Minister if you don't take the nation's needs seriously. It's all very well to find lots of international conferences to go to, some of them you can't avoid, but he's made lots of extra special ones to pose as some kind of world leader. And meanwhile, he's seen confidence in him completely collapse at home, and far from being the strong man of the world stage with a 5-year great mandate in Parliament, he's now the weak man of the international stage because he's got to rush home and change of a very major flagship policy which he thought up in haste and then walked away from.
I mean, I said just as we came to you that they're offering another concession, which is to the timing of a promised review into the PIP stuff by the Disabilities Minister Stephen Timpson. Just your response to John Redwood, free of the Tory party three-line where the changes are due to come into force in November 26, which is exactly when this review will announce. So, I mean, honestly, it's like the magic roundabout. It's rubbish, man. The timing's appalling. Dreadful.
Well, I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? If you don't understand the problem, which a review implies you don't,
they love a review, man. They love a review.
And then you announce the conclusions.
Yeah.
If you knew what you were doing, you have to fight the case. They give up as soon as their backbenchers say they don't like it.
I remember saying
the backbenchers were right on this, but the backbenchers are not right to stop all welfare reform or to slow it all down. It is absolutely critical to have welfare reforms this year, as you say, as many people have been saying. The bill is completely out of control, and it's mainly out of control because we keep adding too many people to it, and we've got to work with them about how a job might be better, how their problem is not serious, or how there is some mental health advice available which would be better than staying at home all the time. We really have to work through these problems and start solving them. Otherwise, this Chancellor will be gone because she will discover she's lost control of the public finances. There will be more tax rises pushed through, and instead of that helping the problem, more rich people will leave, more companies will leave, more companies won't have sufficient profits to pay all the taxes, and so they will find the gap gets even bigger, and you could end up like the 1970s government running out of money.
Honestly, couldn't agree with you more. Just very quickly to let everybody know, the vote on the welfare bill is from 7 o'clock tonight in the House of Commons. Full coverage and reaction with Kev O'Sullivan on Talk from 7 o'clock. Will he win tonight, John?
Well, I guess he'll narrowly win, but I think that's a defeat in its own terms because they've given away so much of the original policy that they look stupid and they look very weak. And a very narrow win with a lot of the party very unhappy will mean that this isn't over.
Yeah.
Because the party will then say, having won loads of concessions today as well as previously, well, we need more concessions. So, by the way, Prime Minister, what we thought you meant was that the Timms review would have to come out before finalising all these policies, and then they'd use the Timms review to say, you know what, we can't make any cuts at all.
Do you know what? God, Parliament misses you. Can I get your take about the what I call abhorrent stuff that was seen at the weekend at Glastonbury? Bob Villan, the man on stage singing "Death, Death to the IDF." For me, I spent yesterday's programme, and I think anybody would disagree. Well, a couple did online, had a go at me. I don't condone what Lucy Connolly said, and I'll repeat it until the cows come home because I think she's becoming almost like a political prisoner. She's in jail for 31 months for some very inappropriate words which were taken down. She's appealed. No, to me, she was the poster girl when Starmer stood up and said, far right, this is an outrage. And I don't condone anything that happened after Southport, but not everybody was far right. This guy's allowed to call for the death of Jews, and it took up, we went on for 72 hours. Donald Trump got out of bed and banned their visas straight away before anybody else did anything here. That was reported on Fox News. That's true. Suddenly yesterday, police investigation, although there's due business about whether Avon and Somerset police will whitewash it. And also, the other thing that's really important, he was dropped by his agents last night, so his world is crumbling. What's your take on that? The two-tier thing is just dreadful, in my humble opinion.
Yes, I mean, this is a disgrace, and everybody is commenting rightly that this should not have been allowed, and this was way outside normal critical speech. And as you say, it has two-tier written all over it if strong action is not taken promptly and immediately. And so we look forward to the responses. I do think it's completely wrong that the BBC should have broadcast it. And of course, they must have a way to have withdrawn it, and they could have withdrawn it more quickly.
Did you hear the news yesterday that Tim Davie? Did you hear that Tim Davie was there and was asked?
I mean, yeah, but they all are. I mean, you know, this is the concert of the year that the BBC spends a fortune on and sends so many people to, and it has to appear in practically every programme they do, not just their music and culture programmes, but also their political and news programmes and all the rest of it, to try and get some value back for the licence fee payers. Well, there are lots of licence fee payers like me who are hopping mad that they're spending their money on that kind of thing and not understanding that this is completely unacceptable. So Tim Davie should go. He has failed. He is the senior editor. He was there. He was supported all this strong commitment to this festival. And the festival, not with just one act, but two acts, or probably more acts, has seriously let the BBC down, and they don't seem to care about it, and they don't seem to care that an awful lot of their licence fee payers are absolutely outraged.
And the other thing is, there's two things. I made the point yesterday, John. One is, I did television long enough and live work long enough to know there'll have been a run-through. They'll have known exactly what were on those posters and in those videos. I do not for 1 minute think the BBC is out of the woods over this, but there always seems to be a way out. And just because we work on the commercial side, where your success is based entirely, you know, you have to work, it has to work to buy adverts. I just think that model is dead. And I think, again, very much like I think a lot about the British people, I think they're suddenly waking up and going, hold on a minute. For on the one hand, you might be left-wing, you might not be, but you're supposed to be a state broadcaster, at least give both sides. You don't. And more than that, it's this sort of assumption that we're going to just keep giving the licence fee money whilst this... I mean, you know, how many paedophiles have they missed? How many scandals have they let go? How many disasters has Tim Davie and the people before him allowed to happen? I think it's an outrage. And if Lucy Letby can be, you know, if she can be in prison for 31 months for, yes, inappropriate stuff, how come? And it begs the question. I said it yesterday. And I got a bit of grief last night online, which is perfect. I don't mind that at all. So naturally, it was fair for me to say that I find any racism abhorrent. But why is it that we have a police force with the grooming gangs that freely admitted they didn't want to investigate too readily in Rotherham because it might have caused racial tension, and yet it's OK to say death to the Jews? Why is racism, anti-Semitism? They're all the same thing. It's disgusting. That man should have been arrested yesterday when he did it, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's all racism. You're absolutely right. And I, like you, find it abhorrent. Never make racial comments. I think it's quite wrong. And I think Britain, on the whole, is a very tolerant and successful society that's welcomed in lots of people, many for good reasons, most to come here legally. That's fine. But this is all out of control now, and I don't think the government understands how serious this is, that they are deliberately dividing the country between those who support the Palestinians and those who don't, and they're creating tensions around a very worrying international crisis, when they ought to be governing in our common interest, and they ought to be leading the country through the issues of the day that hit and badly affect all the people who live here all the time. And that's why they need to turn their attention to getting proper economic growth instead of sandbagging enterprise and throwing the rich out all the time. And that's why they need to make sure there is no two-tier policing or two-tier attitudes by senior government ministers.
Is he, just to finish, is he a dead man walking? You know politics, you've done it a long, long time. Is he a dead man walking, Keir Starmer, Sir John Redwood?
I think he's in a very grave, difficult position with his own party, but I think Labour is more tolerant of badly performing leaders than the Conservative Party turned out to be in recent years. So I don't think they're going to rush in quite the same way, and they don't have quite the same easy procedures to get rid of the leader. But I think he is in a very difficult position. At some point, he's going to have to reshuffle his cabinet. He's got a lot of underperforming or badly performing ministers as well. And that could be the moment of danger for him, because if he puts the wrong people on the backbenches, then you will have a challenger there in the House of Commons every day thinking of ways of upending him. There isn't anybody really like that at the moment. Obviously, Angela Rayner would like the job, but she has to stay within the confines of collective responsibility. Wes Streeting would like the job.
Can you imagine Angela Rayner as the Prime Minister?
Well, I'm told that Rayner and Streeting are the two front runners in this, and they're both in the cabinet, so they have to be careful. But if one emerges on the back benches, a voice across the aisle or across the water, that is far more difficult. And that's what he's got to think through as he decides how he can reinvigorate his government. And a really big issue for him is that the Chancellor has clearly lost it with her party and with the country and with the economy, and has made a complete mess. And so she's got growth down, inflation up, borrowing up, tax up, everything going the wrong way. But if you are a Prime Minister who dumps their Chancellor, it often starts to undermine your position as well. So my advice to him would be, to survive, he needs to find a way of getting Rachel Reeves to do the right things and be more popular. But that doesn't look very likely at the moment.
This isn't just me who says this. Every time you're on, you're a loss, my friend. You should have
Well,
led
I'm still here, Jeremy. And I'm
You
still
know what I mean. I mean,
talking.
I'd love you to be on the side of that dispatch box instead of Kemi Badenoch right now, giving some truth. So, John Redwood, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. 5:20. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go to the calls quickly. I'm going to do a couple. Anthony's in Leeds. Very quickly, Anthony, what you got? 2 minutes on Drive.
OK, Jeremy. The welfare state was a great idea in 1948. Good idea then. But now we've got too many people here. We've got too many immigrants here. This is why they're cutting back on PIP. And to get PIP, right, I know a bit about PIP. You need 2 points or 4 points if you can use the toilet, or if you get a bath, or if you can repair a meal, a dinner, all like that. That's how PIP works.
Interesting for me. Interesting for me, Anthony, right?
You need 12 points, but if you get 8 points, you get the daily living allowance.
Can I just say something? Can I just say something? Because what I completely agree with you is, I mean, so many systems in this country just don't seem to work. But the point is this, and it's not an outrageous comment to make. I'm really, really happy, as I think a lot of people, millions of people in this country are, to pay tax or to pay for people who are less fortunate, who can't help themselves. But unfortunately, what we've created with our welfare state, that was one of the greatest inventions in the modern world, is it now is helping too many people that it shouldn't help, and it is missing the people who really need it. And I hear story after story from people saying to me, you know, when I finally needed help, put my hand in the air, I get absolutely zilch. Very quickly to East Yorkshire. Stephen, 2 minutes on Talk Drive. What you got?
Good afternoon. Well, my point was going to be, why can't anything be done to stop the aiding and abetting in the mass migrations by, like, Care for Cali? We've got the RNLI that just seems to operate like a migrant taxi service the minute they're 400 metres offshore. And I just want to know, surely, if this is a charitable institution, something can be done to say, hang on, you're going to start footing the bill for this.
Well, listen, Ryan, quite rightly, in his guise as a producer, says the RNLI will deny this, but I've told this story before. My mother used to work voluntarily for 20 years. She would be turning in her grave. That's an absolute fact. I've said this still. I don't care if this is unpopular. I'm entitled to my opinion. To me, it's really simple. There are 2 ways that we can cure this problem instantly. One is to put the Royal Navy in 3 ships in the Channel and turn 3 or 4 boats around. I'd get a big liner or a couple of liners. I've said it before, and I'd deck them out. People would be put onto those boats. They would be processed. And if there is any chance you're illegal, you are not setting foot into this country. And whilst we have the argument about, what about detention centres in not desirable places, not 4-star hotels, detention centres with a minimum of fuss, which would send a very, 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 very strong message. It is not bleeding rocket science. How are we supposed to carry on? How are we supposed to say to our own people in Britain, you know what, I'm really sorry times are tough, we're really grateful for everything you've done, but you're not getting anything. But we are going to wipe the backsides of all these people. It doesn't wash anymore, Stephen. It doesn't wash. And somewhere along the line, if these politicians who keep talking about deterrence, we need a the deterrent's simple. Stop making it so attractive to come here in the first place. 5:22, this is Talk Drive.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe it.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5:25. We're all looking at each other. When's that going to finish? It's going to be amazing. Even more amazing. 1 year of chaos airs on Friday, YouTube, for 9 p.m. Is that I'm not on it, because I missed the train. Well, I didn't miss the train. The train didn't turn up. By the way, have you seen that news about the Royal Train? The Queen's, bless her, the late Queen's favourite form of transport, the Royal Train, is being decommissioned. And the poor buggers are going to have to rely on helicopters. After my experience of South West trains, I'm going to make an announcement. I'm done with them. I'm going to work in the chopper. Jodie, you like a chopper, don't you? 0344. Honestly, I've got to get through the... Oh, yeah, we're going to buy the Royal Train. That's what we're going to do. We're going to we're going to pick up Sammy. He's knackered from being a father. By the way, actually, I should say this because I know that Oliver is indeed listening, my son. Bless his little heart this morning, Sammy. Do you know what he did? He set the alarm off downstairs. He nearly pooped himself. He was so... I'm going, oh, my God, we're being burgled. Oh, no, it's just a 2-year-old. I mean, he's 6. I don't even know. Anyway, 0344 499 1000. This is interesting. You know, we always talk about illegal migration, and we sometimes talk about how many people have come to this country and embraced it and given something back and been so important. Jacques is in Andover. He says, I'm South African, Jez, and I've lived here for 21 years. The second day after arriving, I got a job. And since then, I've paid my tax and my NI. I work hard in my community and volunteer where I can. I raise funds for local charities. I have my own radio show and so on. The illegals that come here and receive everything for free is a real slap in the face for us legal migrants who pay their way and are grateful to this country for everything it has provided us with. And I think we have to be really careful, right? Because quite rightly, we're angry and frustrated how this government and this country, not just this government, the Tories as well, wipe the backsides of illegal migrants. But I've told you before, the makeup ladies here came from Poland and have made a really successful business and employ people and work so hard. The guy that picks me up in the evening sometimes came from Bangladesh 40 years ago, works really hard. Jacques there. They are probably more frustrated about illegal migration than you and I are, if that's possible. 0344 499 1000. One thing that has caused absolute outrage this week is the outpouring of anti-Semitism at Glastonbury when that vile human being, what's he called, Pascal de Whatsit or something? Yeah, middle class from Surrey, probably. Anyway, that one, Bob Villan, is that his name? Deaf to the IDF, and it caused, quite rightly, a maelstrom of response. We're delighted to be joined now by Stephen Silverman. This is a mouthful. Director of Investigations and Enforcement Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Good for him. Stephen, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. I'm fine, thank you.
Just put into words, I had Sarah Doherty yesterday, Sarah Doherty, and I, a good friend of mine, and I just, you could see in his eyes, when you saw what happened at Glastonbury, that ill-educated oaf saying deaf to the IDF, what did that make you think?
Well, it wasn't just the fact that he said it. It was the extent to which he roused the crowd into joining with him in shouting it. And one word comes to mind to describe how I and British Jews in general are feeling now, and that is unsafe. And it is hard to believe that we've reached that point, given the part that British Jews have played in British society for so long, that we now feel unsafe in our own country. But we shouldn't be surprised. For 20 months, since 7th of October 2023, we've seen escalation after escalation in violent and hateful rhetoric, the use of imagery, statements, and each time it happens, it becomes the norm. And it was inevitable that we would now get to this point. And already it is becoming the norm, because we saw a bunch of idiots outside a court where Palestine Action was being tried yesterday. What did they chant? Death to the IDF. So we are in a very parlous state in this country. And Jews are feeling very unsafe, but everybody should be concerned, because we know that when this level of hatred gets a country in its grip, Jews might be the first to feel the consequences, but they are anything but the last.
I couldn't agree with you any more than I do. And interestingly, for me, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I asked Jonathan Saradotti yesterday a question I'm going to ask you, and I don't tread carefully, but I do try and understand how sensitive it is. Nobody can be anything but appalled at what happened on October the 7th. I was on air. Nobody can like what they see in Gaza. Do you believe, Stephen, and Jonathan answered this, that Netanyahu and what is going on in the Middle East, I know about misrepresentation, but the optics for so many people, they would lay at his door majoritatively. Do you think that is causing difficulties for Jews across the world, those in Britain? Do you think that that is fueling some of the anger, or what?
Well, let me be very clear. The cause of anti-Semitism is anti-Semites. Yeah, and they will use anything as a pretext to justify their hatred. And I think what happened was that we underestimated the size of the seam of anti-Semitism that was lying dormant in this country. This is its moment, and it has seized it. What's made it doubly, triply worrying is the extent to which it's been able to radicalize others who all they know about Israel, the war in Gaza, international law is what they've been served up on social media. And these people have been radicalized by the...
I'm not disagreeing with anything you say, but I would say this to the Jewish community, and I've been very vocal in my support and will continue to be so. Those drunken middle-class Surrey and Islington kids in the Glastonbury crowd were either off their heads or whatever. Have they been radicalised, or are they just stupid like the Just Stop Oil people that just jump on board the latest activist train and jump up and down and go, oh my God? That's what I'd say. I mean, I went to a university of one of my daughters, and there's you know, they're all marching around with their Palestinian T-shirts, right? And then they go home in the holidays and go off to their mummy and daddy's house in Mallorca because they don't... It's just the latest thing. I'm more concerned that we seemingly... And I make the point again, in my mind, any racism is abhorrent. But why is there far more outrage at apparent Islamophobia, but anti-Semitism is okay? It's not about the colour of your skin. If you're calling for the death or the eradication or the end of a race or a religion or a creed, that's fundamentally wrong, isn't it?
Well, it is. And of course, what we are seeing in all the multitude of protests and marches and rallies that we've seen isn't criticism of the actions of the Israeli government, but criticism of the very idea of the existence of Israel, of a Jewish state, and a desire to see it completely dismantled, and to hell with the millions of Jews who live there, let alone the 2 million Arab Israelis who have the same democratic rights as we do here, the only Arabs in the Middle East to enjoy that. And I think, you know, what we're seeing, it's a mixture of people. I think there are absolutely some that fit the description you've just given of essentially a bunch of idiots out for a laugh and joining in with the crowd. I think there are people who are absolutely loving it because this is their time and they can get away with it. And there are others who have been conned into believing that this is the moral cause of the century, that they can get behind, virtue signal, and go to bed with a light conscience at night.
I'd love to take your opinion as well on and again, I've been quite outspoken about the BBC. I think the BBC has passed its sell-by date. I think that, I mean, the chief rabbi today said that the airing of the vile Jew hatred is national shame. I couldn't agree with him any more if I wanted to. I mean, when I discovered yesterday during the show that Tim Davie, the Director General, was actually at Glastonbury and knew about this and said, well, I won't allow it on demand, but it can stay on streaming for five hours or whatever. Another one who doesn't seem to be able to make any right decisions at all. In your mind, the BBC, are they anti-Semitic? Did they get this badly wrong? What do you want to see happen to them?
I don't know if they're anti-Semitic. I know a great many people are concerned. And in fact, a former very senior figure at the BBC, Danny Cohen, has said that the BBC is institutionally anti-Semitic, and you can understand why he would think that. There is something deeply troubling that's embedded at the BBC, was a confusing thing. And in the 20 months that have elapsed since the 7th of October 2023, the BBC have got it wrong time and time and time again.
Are they still refusing to call Hamas a terrorist organisation?
They are, and they've had to apologise. Now, in the normal scheme of things, you would expect those mistakes to even out.
But they're not mistakes, are they? You and I both know it's deliberate ideology, isn't it? It's deliberate ideology. It's got to be.
Well, I think we can only speculate because we don't know. It's possibly partly ideology. It's partly fear of standing up and resisting the other people who do hold that ideology. We just don't know. But the BBC have utterly shamed themselves. If they can't be trusted on this issue, how on earth can they be trusted as an even-handed news source on any other issue? And, you know, we have called for Tim Davie to go. He said chance after chance to sort this out. This is possibly the most egregious failure on his part. And somebody needs to be accountable, and I'm afraid it should be Tim Davie.
I told the story yesterday. You won't have been listening, but I told the story yesterday about going to my son's speech day on Saturday, and a BBC News journalist comedian was the speaker, and the first 4 minutes were great, and then he just launched into anti-Trump, anti-Brexit, pro-net zero. And I'm sat there thinking, as I think about this, you know, there are two sides to every coin. I don't purport to think that everything I say is correct, or I'm sure you're exactly the same, but if you're going to tell kids and tell the world, you need to have both sides of the argument. And it strikes me that in this whole argument about what's happening in the Middle East, and this fear amongst the Jewish community of anti-Semitism is being fueled by, I don't know, I can't find the right words, but when I drive through London and I see the unwashed student fraternity wearing Palestinian T-shirts and flags, I want to stop and say, do you know what you're supporting? When they, like with Just Stop Oil, do you know anything about Just Stop Oil, you odious bunch of... I don't know. It just annoys me that things that matter so much. And I have many Jewish friends. I say it every day, I make no apology. I've got friends whose kids can't wear their blazers in North London on the bus for fear of reprisal. What the hell does that tell you? What does that tell you? It's very easy, isn't it, to attack the Jewish community. People want to remember how much the Jewish community has done for this country and how embedded in this country the Jewish community is. But we don't hear that. We hear Netanyahu, Gaza. I get all that, but we're talking about people who have lived here all their lives and are British and are part of this country. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, you look at what happened on the Trevor Phillips show on Sky on Sunday when Wes Treating was being interviewed and he was asked about this. And his response was that Israel needs to get its house in order. That was an absolutely dreadful response. And it seems that Jewish concerns are largely being ignored because they know we will not cause trouble. We do not cause trouble. We see it time and time again at the incessant marches where offences on one side go unheeded while people protesting in support of the hostages that are still being held in Gaza are arrested for spurious reasons because the police know that, you know, they are not going to cause trouble. They are not going to be difficult to deal with. What has happened to this country over the last 20 months should terrify every decent, moral person.
Couldn't agree more. Lovely to have you on, Stephen. Delighted that you came on a campaign against anti-Semitism. Stephen Silverman, thank you very much indeed. This is Talk Drive. If you want to be on, 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. It's 20 to 6.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Welcome back. What happened there? We were in the middle of a conversation. Ryan was looking completely concerned as ever, and then it was back. 0344 499 1000. Caroline, this hatred of Israel, let's face it, they mean Jews, is not new, Jez. The hatred goes back decades. I'm not Jewish, but they're the most persecuted people on earth. My heart goes out to them. Good afternoon to Steve. The idiot that spouted his hate at Glastonbury may be claiming that free speech card, but his rant was clearly made to incite violence against Israel and it would undoubtedly incite violence against Jewish people generally due to the low IQ of the morons he preaches to. Lock the idiot up. Colin Tupman. I think that's a great name. Great show. If the police arrest delivery drivers, they should have everything cancelled and immediately sent back to France. Oh, we can't send them back to France because the French don't want them. If you don't want them, you're not getting the 500 million quid. To the phone lines, East Yorkshire. Patrick, you got 2 minutes on Talk Drive. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Jezza, good afternoon. I think it's your birthday soon, isn't it, mate?
Yes, I'm 60 on Monday. Yeah.
Well, never mind. Yeah. Well, I was in the police service for 22 years, and if I needed any evidence, I've got some evidence for you about this Dylan bloke, whatever they're called, vile bloke. I've got some evidence for you. It's on iPlayer, mate.
Yeah.
It's all there. Now then, Avon and Somerset have set out an investigation. How long does it bloody take them to arrest this guy, put him in front of the courts, and get him into prison?
This didn't go down too well with certain people, what I said yesterday, which is why I'm going to repeat it again today. I do not support the far right who did what they did after Southport. I will add the caveat, I don't think everybody that was on the streets moaning was far right. But here's the interesting thing. Keir Starmer, very new to his premiership, decided that despite many reports that we had no police, we had no prison space, and there was a 3-year tailback of court cases and judges. Within 24 hours, live on television, he had rounded up those thugs correctly, tried those thugs correctly, and publicly and on telly thrown those thugs into jail. My question to Keir Starmer and to this government is, if you are doing that, and Lord Herman, whatever his name is, Lucy Connolly suggests, why the hell wasn't that piece of crap rounded up on Saturday, put in a van, tried on Monday morning, and is languishing in jail now? It is double standards by anybody's admission, and that is what's wrong with it, isn't it?
Yeah, Lucy Connolly must be banging the cell door down, saying what the hell is happening in our country.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing, Jeremy, the government will have their hands and sticky mitts all over this trial here and this arrest.
I worry that the Avon and Somerset police, it'll be a whitewash. That's what I worry about.
You worry about that? It's hell-bent on something happening, or the government will say, "Oh, now let's not create any tension about what's going on." We're quite happy with the two-tier system. It works quite well for us because it shoves everything else under the carpet, like you rape gangs, etc. It's all going to be shoved away, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Well, I tell you what, my belief is, Patrick, that the British people won't allow it. Great to have you on, my friend. Thank you. Let's head to Leeds really quickly. Terry, I always say it, but only 2 minutes. What you got?
Hey, I just wanted to ask that Mr. Redwood, same question as I sent a message to Yvette Cooper. Why are the mobile phones not taken off these migrants when they arrive?
Oh, no. We don't take... What? Why don't we take the mobile phones off them?
Yep.
No, Terry, calm down. We give them a new mobile phone. What are you talking about? And a credit card.
No, I watched the GB News video the other day where they were coming off the boats. They were given a jacket each to keep them warm. Then they were put straight on a red double-decker bus.
Yeah.
And the video shows them they're all sat on the bus on the mobile phones, texting the people back in France or whoever, who have arrived safe. Now, if they took the phones off them, maybe they'd be able to trace who they are.
I don't disagree with that, but do you know what I'd do? The reason I would not let them set foot in England, I would literally have the Navy take them, right, to a big boat offshore, process within an hour, 2 hours, a day, whatever. And then, if you're an illegal, you're going to a detention centre, which I'm going to build in the Falkland Islands or the Orkneys or wherever. And you will then... No, I'm not even being outrageous. Yeah. And I'm not going to give you a hotel. I'm not going to wipe your backside. Well, it's not going to be very nice because there's people in Britain struggling. And then you can keep your mobile phone. And this is what happened with Trump. And you can tell your friends back in wherever, it's actually not worth coming because it's not very nice. Yeah. Final call of this section to Huddersfield. Kevin, really quick. What you got, Kev?
Right, Jezza. 2019, road accident, lost my front tooth. Can't get an NH dentist from 2019. 19. 6 years I've been without a tooth. They come over here, they get free dentist, healthcare, free glasses. Why can't they sort me out?
Because they come from war-torn countries. And not having a tooth is nothing compared to coming from... Oh, no, they don't come... They're coming from France. Now, I'll tell you why you can't get any teeth. Is because... Well, you could get teeth, you could get an appointment if you want to just go to Calais on Eurostar and come back in a boat. I suspect you'll be able to see a dentist straight away. I'm just being honest. I wish you luck. Hello to Jason. Starmer and Hermer bust a... Pardon? Did I say... Don't fret. I'm trying to say bust a blood vessel. I actually said but... Yeah. Starmer and Hermer bust a blood vessel when anyone dares to question if Britain has a two-tiered judicial system, but I'm yet to see one single left-winger be dealt with like Lucy Connolly, says Jason in Southampton. And that, my friend, is the reality. Coming next, we'll do some sport. It's 13 minutes to 6. We're live across the UK. This is Talk Drive.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe it.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
10 to 6. So I want to start the shout out. I've done it already, but it's very interesting because the guy, I'm not doing it for another reason, but the guys didn't hear the message from Dorset Fence, right? But he said to me this morning, I was watching Talk yesterday, he said Harrison, for the first time, he said, and I thought it was really good. And then this bloke come on talking about sport and how he fancied Emma Raducanu, and I turned him off. Push the sport button.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Anil Candola's back, so you caused the only person that was listening to switch off, man.
Yeah, I know, it's a shame, isn't it, really? But you can't please everyone in this world, can we? So...
Well, you'd like to please Emma Raducanu, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. She got the win yesterday, by the way, Jeremy, so I'm really happy for her.
If you took her out, how much would you fork out on her? You were brilliant last night, you did great. Also, I'm having people ringing in going, he's got lovely eyebrows. What's going on?
Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah,
have they been plucked?
Well, yeah, I look after myself and the eyebrows are on the agenda. I have a very special eyebrow lady that sorts me out, so yeah, big shout out to her.
You've got her eyebrow lady?
Yeah,
oh my
God.
Good. This is like going back 30 years, right, to when I first got into television. What the hell's going on? Right, mate, listen, day 2 of Wimbledon. Yesterday was a great day, 7 through.
Yep.
Today, not so good.
No, Wimbledon record for day 1, as you already said, in terms of the Brits. A great day to start off, and you had a lot of optimism. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be too great from the British side of things.
Dan Evans won, though.
Yeah, even Dan Evans.
103. He's doing quite well, isn't he, to run?
Even Dan Evans, like you said, beat fellow Brit Jay Clark. However, he does probably have the opportunity on Thursday to play none other than Novak Djokovic.
Nice.
So if he wins this evening, that will be...
the point?
Yeah, exactly that. And sticking with that point, in terms of Oliver Tavitt, I spoke to yourself about him yesterday in terms of him having his prize fund already
This is
capped.
the 700... Great story. 733rd ranked player in the world. Because he's a US college, he can only take like $7.5 grand. He had 100 grand for getting to the second round.
And do you want to know who he's going to be playing tomorrow? Carlos Alcaraz.
He's got no... Well, there's only one... Alcatraz?
Yeah, Alcaraz.
Alcatraz. The only chance he's got, and I'm not being rude, is that Alcatraz is so shattered from other external interesting things, which you'd love to be part of, that he's knackered when he gets to the court. Heather Watson's out, Johannes Monday out, George Lovehagen, Jodie Burrage and Francesca Jones. When is Emma Raducanu playing
I believe
again?
she is going to be playing tomorrow. I'm getting a bit nervous now, but yeah, tomorrow. It's the second round. No, of course.
Have you interviewed her?
No, I've never interviewed her.
Because I think you and she would be a match made in heaven.
Thank you. I'll take that as a massive compliment then, right?
Well, why would you... Listen, let me tell you about these big stars. They're like, you do your eyebrows, mate. This is the beginning of it. Imagine if Anil got with Emma Raducanu.
Yeah, and it started all from your show. That would be amazing.
She's got a bad back anyway, so she's not...
Steady.
Now, now, Ryan, big football fan.
Yeah.
Club World Cup.
Yeah.
Biggest joke ever, in my humble opinion. What's the point? Ridiculous. Man City knocked out by Al Hilal, Saudi Arabian side. Who plays for them that we know?
Yes, Al Hilal Koulibaly, who was previously at Chelsea, the likes of him, he's there as well. Inzaghi's the manager there. So, yeah, I think, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't agree with you in terms of it being a bit of a disappointment, but I think this result is a massive moment for the competition. Not only at the fact that in terms of Saudi Arabia they had a massive result against one of the big dogs in the whole of the world, not just in European football, but also the fact that this idea of the golfing class between the top teams and the so-called less teams, there will be no way that bridge can be gapped. That gap should be bridged, should I say? But this shows it's possible. Big results like this.
Is it the weather
football.
though? I'm not sticking up for Man City, but
no.
But it's bloody July.
Yeah.
When does the football... Watch his face. When does the football season start?
Starts in August.
See?
Yeah.
I mean, you would be, wouldn't you, if you were playing 11 months a year? I mean, you know, I don't know. We have these arguments the whole time. Ryan thinks I'm mad. It's like the Nations League. Not interested.
No.
I'm interested in the European Championship, the Premier League and the World Cup. The rest of it, do you know what I mean?
Well, you say that.
back in the Championship. We've got important things. Look at Sam, how excited he is.
There's big stuff to be discussed, but it's a good point that you make there in terms of the World Cup. We've had, I think it was just in the last day or two, Professor Mike Tipton of Portsmouth University, who specialises in all of this kind of stuff on the effect of extreme temperature on the body, and he has suggested that we change the times of the World Cup games to something as early as 9 a.m. So if you ask the professionals in this capacity,
honestly,
they're not going to be a fan.
Somebody's paid that pillar, right, to do something which says, if playing in hot weather tires you out and makes you sweaty, why don't you play at 9 o'clock in the morning? No, what's it, Sherlock? England, second
Yes.
test, India tomorrow. Where's that being played?
Edgbaston.
See, very good. Well done. Jofra Archer needs to wait for his comeback. England, brilliant in the first match against India, but India will come back. They're a good team.
Yeah, very, very good. I think the one big aspect in terms of India, when it comes to England anyway, we expect a very similar, if not the exact same team, batting order, everything, bowling. We do expect a very similar lineup from England, whereas India, Jasprit Bumrah, for me, the best bowler in the world. There is discussion that he will miss at least one.
Shocking comment. Sorry?
Well, you could clearly, I don't exactly rub all of your listeners in the right way. So
Bumrah is an amazing.
Yeah, so for me, absolutely.
How many is he missing?
So it's at least one of them he will be missing. So there is a bit of talk.
Is he injured?
No, but this is for fitness purposes. He's just been in the Indian Premier League as well as other competitions. So it has been agreed he's going to miss one test. And of course, with Lords after the one at Edgbaston, this potentially could be the one that they cash in terms of keeping him out. So
well, this is interesting because they're talking about Jofra Archer, who is amazing, right? Amazing. He's gonna. They have started to do that with when they've got a pool of really good, fast bowlers. They'll pick and choose. But Bumrah is really he's the heartbeat of that team.
Absolutely. If you take out his contributions from even the last test, I know that they lost, but it would have been a real landslide victory for England if it wasn't for Bumrah, who were barely just keeping them in the game. So if he is omitted from the squad in terms of managing his fitness levels, I think that's a massive advantage for England.
Now, let's have some predictions for you then. Who wins the men's singles at Wimbledon?
Ooh, I'm going to have to go with Alcaraz.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. He's a very nice guy.
Really.
Yeah, yeah. Said it through gritted teeth.
Who wins the female?
Well, look, there's so many competitors, isn't there? But I think this will really be the year that Emma Raducanu cements her place at Wimbledon.
Listen, she's got through one match, right? And this is what I hate / love about being British. This is what happens to the British Lions rugby. This is what happens with the World Cup. This is what happens with the European Cup. It happens with Wimbledon. We win one match and we said we're not going to get excited, and we're all like really, really excited.
Yeah.
She'll strain a muscle.
No. She'll do that lifting the trophy at the end. That's what she'll do.
Jeez. Now, on this show, there's a diverse mix of footballing sort of support. I support West Ham, humiliation, obviously. Through the glass, the two kids, the two boys, the two lads. Sam is a massive Charlton fan who did brilliantly to get up to the Championship. Ryan is a long-suffering Watford fan who basically have a new manager every month and have players I've never heard of, to be perfectly honest. But what's really interesting is the first Championship game of the season
no, it's not.
is between newly promoted Charlton Athletic for Sammy and Watford with Ryan. And I think now, just to finally include you in the team, I'm going to ask you for a prediction. When is the match, Sammy? When is it? He's forgotten. He's got two kids. August sometime. Who wins, Charlton or Watford? Day one of the season. He's not going to be booked.
No.
August the 9th.
Well, look, it's obviously a massive game. Two teams are desperate for a win, exactly, especially when it comes to Jeremy Kyle on talk. Massive. I'm going to go for a draw, 1-1. Thank you, Jeremy. Take care. And I hope to speak to you soon. Thank you very much.
Mate, listen, great. Are you back here tomorrow?
Hopefully. If I'm invited, I will be with you.
You're always here. We love you. Day 3 of Wimbledon. His girlfriend's playing tomorrow, so we'll hope that Emma can get the ball over the net. I didn't say that as it sounded. And also, of course, day 1 of the second test, England taking on India at Edgbaston, already 1-0 up in that 5-game series. It's almost 6. We'll do the news. Nigel Evans was once the Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. He lost his seat. He ended up in Little Chef. I've saved his career. He's somewhere in the world writing his book, and he'll be live and exclusive on Talk Drive in the next few minutes. News at 6, as I said. If you want to be on, take chance now to make your call. 0344 499 1000. Only number you need. You can also send me a WhatsApp message via the same number. And as you know, my friends, they look at me. Can you speak? I can speak for an hour without stopping. Send me a text. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. The news at 6 is next on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Is it only me? Did the newsreader, did she just say, this is Alex Isaac? Yeah? Doesn't she play for Newcastle United, or have I missed the point? 3 minutes past 6, good job. 0344 499 1000. If you're just tuning in to Talk Drive, I'm having a particularly difficult day. I arrived to Jodie and Ryan with a big smile on their cheeky chops, saying there's an early birthday present for you from a viewer. It was a book. I wondered what it was. You ready for this? This edition was given to me for my birthday. It's End of Life Care That Goes Wrong. To report from the Lords and Commons about the Family and Child Protection Group. They are. Happy birthday, Jez. End of life care that goes wrong. That's, ow. That's dropped me. Oh, look, I've smashed the pen now. Look. Oh, we're having a nightmare here, Jode. Look. Look, Jode, look, smashed it. It's all fallen to bits. I need a new one. That's rubbish as well. Right, if you want to be on in the next, hour, I suppose, 0344 499 1000, that's the only number you need. You can send a voice note via Ryan, 0344 499 1000, or you can text the show 87222. Loads and loads and loads to talk about. Hello to Carol. Sorry you won't be in at work on your birthday. You think I'm coming here on my birthday, Carol? You got another money. Thank you very much, Steve. We'll get to Joe in Cheshire as well. Let's go to our next guest. Delighted to have him, and I always mess about, but he's a top man, a Tory that actually speaks the truth. Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, currently on a world tour writing his best-selling book. Where are you now, sir? Oh, he looks like he's in custody somewhere.
I'm back in London, sadly. I'm here for about 10 days, and then I'm off to France. So,
does the private jet get fired up regularly? Because you're on a private jet everywhere, aren't you, Evans? What's going on?
I wish, yeah. Well, I'm not on a royal train like the King, but I haven't got 2 helicopters to go to, so we are where we are.
Mate, loads I want to talk to you about. Starting with this sort of, I mean, I'm trying to be as dispassionate as I can about this government. Tonight at 7 o'clock, full coverage, by the way, with Kev O'Sullivan. It's the bet. It should be a bet. It's the vote on the government's welfare bill, this attempt to cut PIP by £5 billion. The welfare bill, and PIP was included. Complete outrage. For many of us, it doesn't go far enough, but for certain members of Starmer's party, it was too near the mark, and actually ill thought out, and would affect several 100,000 disabled people. So off he is abroad. During the weekend, I read this thing that goes, oh, yes, I'm making concessions because I got it wrong because I was concentrating on world affairs. Right, so you've just admitted you can only do one thing at a time. We find out an hour ago that an hour shy of this vote, Nige, the government is still offering a further concession on its controversial welfare bill in a bid to win over rebels. But listen to this. The offer, this is brilliant, if it wasn't so mad, is around the timing of a promised review into PIP, to be carried out by the Disabilities Minister Stephen Timms. MPs were concerned that the planned changes to PIP for new claimants were due to come into force before ministers had the chance to act on the review's findings. So Starmer's shambles of a government has decided that the thing is, we're going to... Anyway, are you ready for this? The changes will come into force on the 1st of November 2026. Stephen Timms' review will report back on the 1st of November 2026. This is like the magic roundabout of the welfare bill. And again, I'm not being disrespectful. This man is losing his authority within his own party, but he's becoming a laughingstock, man, for a Prime Minister a year out with a 180-seat majority to have to be begging his MPs to vote for him to the point where anything he puts forward isn't going to save any money and is so watered down it's pointless. What's the point, Nigel Evans?
Yeah, what is the point? I mean, he's done some screeching brake turns, or however you would term it, on a number of pieces of his legislation. He's got a massive majority, and that massive majority have now got their Prime Minister on the run. I can't believe it. I read the headlines too just a few moments ago that Stephen Timms stood up in the House of Commons, as you say, within now minutes of the vote taking place at 7 o'clock. And then he has now promised to withdraw the PIP clause until after the review. So they've actually withdrawn a central part of the legislation. And I find it absolutely incredible that this wonderful machine has basically broken down in front of our eyes. In the 32 years I was there, I'm just trying to think if I remember anything so calamitous as what is just happened in the House of Commons, where the minister has basically come to the dispatch box, gone to the microphone and pleaded with his own backbenchers to support this piece of legislation. And to do so, he's withdrawn an incredibly important part of it for at least another year, which is now going to cost way more billions. The reality is that even with it as it is, it's going to push, we're told, 150,000 people into poverty. That's got a lot of Labour MPs worried, and they are now threatening not to support the legislation. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens tonight. I suspect he's going to get it through. Now they've withdrawn that important aspect to it. But where is Rachel from Accounts going to find the extra billions?
And also because you were
added to the bill.
You were a backbencher, then you assumed a higher role. But here's what I don't. Well, I'd love you to explain to me about politics, but from the outside, right, I'm thinking, so you've got this authority, you've won this majority, but you have no antenna. I was saying this earlier, no foresight, no sort of smell of what's going to work and what's not going to work. Despite all your advisors, you think you can, I don't know, screw the pensioners, slag off the farmers, destroy the lives of many ex-servicemen, and you're going to be OK. And then you come to this, right? Which is, of course, it should matter to MPs of all sides if we're taking disabilities away from genuinely disabled people. The fact is the welfare system is the greatest invention in the modern world, Nigel, but it now helps people it shouldn't help and lets down people it should help. But if you're a backbencher, answer me this. Your Prime Minister, who has complete control, and in fact, most of the time you'd have to toe the party line, has with this shown absolutely how weak he is. And presumably that says to backbenchers, well, we'll do it next time and the time after, because he's on the rack. Is he shot? Right. Is he shot to pieces? And I'm being honest. Is he a busted flush?
No, absolutely. In reality, tonight, this would have been a vote of confidence in him, whether he likes it or not. So what he's done is he's basically, right, let's say 40 or 50 of his backbenchers had not supported him tonight. He would have still got it through. But 40 to 50, what was he going to do with them then, Jeremy? Is he going to withdraw the whip from 40 to 50 Labour backbenchers? No. So what he's done is he's removed that embarrassment by removing Clause 5, and he'll have to deal with it at another stage.
But he's not avoided the embarrassment, because the whole bleeding country and world knows that this man is my point is, it's not the U-turns. It's the fact that they seem to lack any creditable plan or any... And I'm not sticking up for your lot. It was a shambles. I mean, we were talking earlier about Sunak, 2 days out from the election. Oh, well, GDP on defence. Shut up. The point is about this Labour Party. I'm just shocked they had so long, and they are absolutely... I don't know whether it's him. I don't know whether it's the machinery of government. I mean, it's incompetence, man.
No,
it's not difficult, is it?
No, and I think what's happened is the backbenchers have smelt blood. There's a couple of things going on here. Well, we know that there's a crisis within Downing Street. We're reading daily about the Morgan McSweeney fallout between him and Keir Starmer. That he's we read in the
Has he fallen out with Starmer, McSweeney? Because he fell out with Sue Gray. That was the end of her, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, apparently they've fallen out too. He's giving interviews without even McSweeney getting any input. Hence that Sunday the Observer article where Keir said, "I'm terribly sorry about talking about an island of strangers because I was handed that speech and I really didn't understand what was in it because I'm too busy thinking about foreign affairs." So you've got that going on at the one stage, and then on the other, you've got a ton of Labour backbenchers who never thought that they would ever be in Parliament, who now rather like it, and that they're looking at the opinion polls, seeing, quite frankly, that they're only going to be there up until the next general election and they're out, and they now want to see change.
Well, listen. We just had a text from a backbench Labour MP, not going to name this person. They've just been in touch to say, this is a genuine quote, "It's absolute chaos down here." That's a Labour backbench MP has just been in touch on text, not going to say a name. It's absolute chaos down here. I am not building this up for anything more than it will be, because the Tories right now are a bleeding shambles. I genuinely mean that. Reform are riding the coattails of populism. But this is an extraordinary... It's only a year on Friday, Nige. And I come back to, I just don't think he smells it. I don't think... He's probably just a lawyer who got lucky to be in Parliament, but I don't think he has that instinct to take people with him, like Thatcher, like Blair, right? It's beyond me. It's beyond. It frightens me that somebody this incompetent in terms of how they sense things is in power. Let me give you another example, something else I wanted to talk to you about. And just remember that welfare bill vote tonight, 7 o'clock. More concessions. Nigel's just told you, Stephen Timms has just gone there and go, well, drop the pip thing then. I mean, why are you bringing it in anyway? Your confidence, the confidence in this government is shot to pieces on their own backbench. Nigel, the other big story, of course, this week, at the weekend, the vile ranting of that rap singer Bob Villan at Glastonbury, death to the IDF. And I wanted to get your take on a story that I was very strong about yesterday, and I'm completely strong now, which is I don't like any racism, OK? I thought what Lucy Connolly said was wrong. I don't believe she was... I think she's a political prisoner. Sorry, I'll say that till the end of time. I think she's been made an example with. I think if she's far right, why was this bloke not arrested, dragged off stage? And why was he not tried, convicted and put in jail within 24 months? When people say I'm criticising Sir Keir Starmer, I have every goddamn right to say there's a two-tier justice system in this country led by that charlatan Hermer. And it's not right. It's not right at all, pal.
No, absolutely. I think the only thing good that I've read in the papers today is that we're actually having a 1-year rest from Glastonbury, because every 5 years, apparently, I hadn't noticed, they give the field and the people who live around there a bit of a rest too. And so we've got 24 months to wait till the next one. Now, there's lots of things that worry me about Glastonbury. Number one is how many BBC people seem to populate the fields. About
900. 900.
It costs millions, actually millions and millions to broadcast this stuff. And yet they knew what was going to come with Bob Villan. They knew what was
well, I said it yesterday, mate. You know politics, I know telly. There'd have been a run-through. They'll have looked at the backgrounds and all those pictures and everything. And the worst bit was, in the middle of the show yesterday, it turns out Tim Davie was there. They told him, and he went, don't have it on demand, but leave it on streaming. Tim Davie should have gone today.
Yeah, well, I'm rather hoping that the Secretary for Culture, Media and Sports, Ms. Nandy, will call him in. I mean, the Select Committee under Caroline Dinich should have him in this week, if at all possible, to hold him to account for his laziness in allowing that thing to go ahead in the first place, and then to allow it to carry on for several hours afterwards. You quite rightly say that that councillor who put a tweet up, that went up for a few hours too. And so we've got something very, very similar. And if there's going to be any consistency in the judicial process of this country, then Bob Villan will be going down for a lot longer than is the case with that councillor.
I mean, couldn't agree more.
And he should go. He should just go. Tim Davie should go. Enough is enough. This has happened on his watch. He was there. He should have stopped it. It's not as if they didn't know or couldn't anticipate what was going to happen. It was appalling. I actually listened to what Villan said, and I was stunned how bad it was.
And also the thing that was said to me yesterday, which I think is really, really important here. Not only was he there going deaf to the idea. In one of his lyrics is, do you want your country back? You can off.
Yes.
I mean, for me, that's hate speech. If what Lucy Connolly did was hate speech, that is as bad, if not worse. And yet, when Starmer came out, I said it at the time, after Southport, don't condone the right-wing thugs at all. But when he labelled everybody who criticises a right-wing thug, I thought, oh, I see. So that's everybody's right. Labelled, and anybody... But this guy... As of last night, Avon Police, Somerset Police are investigating. Will it be a whitewash? Probably. His agents dropped him. And do you know what? Whilst we're doing the show yesterday, the biggest and quickest response was when Donald Trump woke up and within 20 minutes, his US visas revoked. I don't want this foul man in my country. And we're sitting there going, see, good old Donald does it straight away.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant response. And let's just see how brave Villan is when he's sitting in front of the police being interrogated, because the reality is you can be very brave when you're in front of thousands of people who are as pretty
double-barreled boy called Pascal from Surrey, middle-class parents, private school, any money, pile of old tosh.
But I tell you what, they're pretty dense, Jeremy, when they're chanting what he's chanting. But let's see how brave he is when he's being interrogated by the police, because quite frankly, he hasn't got a leg to stand on. Absolutely not. He should be hauled before the courts.
There's a great story in the papers today about the council boss defying reform over the trans flag. Have you seen this? I'd love you to take us a tour on this. From UK, has accused Warwickshire County Council's chief exec of a coup d'etat and a row over removing a pride flag. Zia Yusuf, who was on the show earlier, head of reforms at Doge Efficiency, made the claim after Monica Fogarty refused to move the flag before the end of Pride Month from outside the council's Shire Hall headquarters in Warwick. Acting Reform Warwickshire leader George Finch wrote to the council's chief executive asking for the flag, which includes the colours of the trans rights movement and traditional rainbow colours, to be removed. But the chief exec refused the request, stating in an email response to Finch that she was responsible for such decisions. Yusuf accused Fogarty of acting like the monarch of Warwickshire and a subversion of democracy. The flag has since been removed from Shire Hall following the end of Pride Month. Thoughts of that? Because Reform are in charge of 10 councils now. They have pretty strong views. But as is usual, the blob or the ideological establishment kicking back. What are your thoughts, Nigel?
Well, personally, I haven't got a problem with the pride flag being shown and flown, right? But put that to one side. You're absolutely right. Reform are in charge, and their policy is not to have any flags other than the Union Jack and I think it's one other. So it's very limited in prescription as to what they were going to have outside their council buildings. The chief executive is an employee of that local authority. She doesn't run the local authority. She's there to carry out the wishes of those people who are elected councillors and those who are basically in the cabinets. So she's got to follow orders. What she is doing is basically stopping what they were elected to do. And we saw the same thing under the previous Tory government when Dominic Raab was putting his foot down. He was called a bully when Priti Patel was saying, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? The blob turned on them. And they've just got to remember where they are. When democracy is all about voting for people who stand on a programme and want that programme carried out. And no chief executive and no civil servants should be standing in the way. And if they do, they should go. And I assume she won't be much longer in that post.
One of the things Reform Zia said to me, earlier, was that they will take on the blob. Can I ask you, as a high-ranking ex-politician, do you believe the blob have too much control?
Yes, I do. And clearly, if they don't want to do something, they stall it. They
Why
just
haven't
slow
past
things.
governments done more to curb those controls, Nigel?
Well, they should have done. And I go back to the point that I made earlier on about Dominic Raab. Dominic went through absolute hell because of the accusations made by the blob against him. And in the end, he decided not to stand. Everybody should have got behind Rishi and said, got behind Dominic rather, including Rishi, and made absolutely certain that the civil servants did what they were asked to do by ministers of the Crown. They are ministers of the Crown. The civil servants are there to carry it out. They're not there to trip up the administration. And I'm afraid the blob are something that has got to be tackled properly. And I'm very interested. I read the Reform's Nigel Farage's interview in the Times on Monday. Fascinating ideas that he's got as far as bringing people outside of government into government departments. I rather like the fact that he says you've got people who are being made ministers. They're there for a year and a bit, right? They've got no experience in defence whatsoever. And then they are kicked out after a year and a half, and then they become Secretary of State for Health, another area where they've got no experience whatsoever. Yeah. So why don't we draw on the expertise of people who actually are out in the community, who know something about the health department, who knows something about the military, who knows something about education, rather than relying on amateurs, which is what members of Parliament are, quite frankly. They don't get elected because of their expertise. They get elected because they stand and normally stand behind party colours. That's why they get elected. It's not because they're genius in the department that they then become to run for 18 months before they go and run another department. I actually think it's very, very interesting. And it'll be interesting to see what Reform are going to say about the blob and about how they're going to tackle it, because the civil service won't like it. I mean, the last thing the civil service will be Reform elected.
Who cares? Yeah, of course. I'm sure the civil service would be, they would think it's abhorrent, and they'd try and put, I mean, somebody told me, didn't they? They said to me, when a government changes, 200 people lose their jobs, 100 MP, ministers, 100 special advisors. The remaining 10,000 are all... Yeah, absolutely. If they mean it, it'll be a really interesting thing. Nigel, you're a legend. We love... how's the book going? Have you got to my chapter yet?
No, chapter 17 at the moment, so it's not too bad.
Well, I need something, because Kev O'Sullivan, who's on at 7, I mean, he was literally in the video. Bob the villain hated him so much, he made it to Glastonbury. Kev has got, I mean, he's now gazing out the window. I saw him earlier, he was looking out the window and I said, what are you doing? He said, my town. I mean, he's changed, Kev, since Bob Villan idolised him. Well, hated him, to be perfectly honest. We want the chapter, mate. We're looking forward to the book. We love having you on. Thanks so much indeed. Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. What is it, 6:23? Villan is from Ipswich, Jez, says Tim. Still middle class. Craig Brown. Really? Jez, Bob Villan trying to foolishly make themselves sound like Bob Dylan should be jailed along with those at the BBC who were in charge on the day, or let Lucy Connolly out. The government should go further, telling the Glastonbury Festival owners that a repeat of this will forfeit the licence to hold the event. Also, the BBC should not cover it up. But they will, and that's the point. That's the point, Craig in Sunderland. For some unknown reason, right? That the establishment, the ideological establishment, just covers its own backside and covers everybody up. Hello to Jack. JKU, MG, Big Boy Kev. Who wrote this? Did Kev O'Sullivan write this? Cardi P for government, and save us all with common sense and stick Alex Phillips in the Home Office. God, nobody would get in. Who would have what job? Mike would obviously have to be Prime Minister. Let's have your suggestions. 87222. If the talk lot became the government, MG for Prime Minister, where would Kev O'Sullivan go? Where would I go? Where would Peter Cardwell go? Where would Ian Collins go? Minister for Sexual Relationships. 624.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe it.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome about Ryan's now getting bossy and just said, do this, do that. I went, no, do one. He went, I'm in charge, yeah, of yourself. He has to be bossy like me at work, because when we get home, we're complete pussycats, aren't we, mate? 627 0344 419 1000. We'll go live to Westminster in just a tick. To actually the lobby. Theo Usherwood there for us ahead of that vote, that all-important vote on the welfare bill. Quick call, let's go to Dundee. Why did I do that? George, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much.
What can I do for you quickly, my friend?
Yeah, to see that you're asking about how do we make up this £5 billion if it's not going to come from welfare cuts. This government and previous governments were now up to £50 billion in tax relief on pension contributions. 50 billion, 50. Out of that 50 billion, 20 billion in tax relief goes to higher rate taxpayers, the people who do not need it the most. If you reduce their pension contribution tax relief down to an ordinary taxpayer's, an ordinary income tax relief on their pension, you would save the country £10 billion. I
think you might need a job as a Chancellor. The only thing I would say to you is, and don't jump down my throat, wait for me to finish. One of the things that you always think with Labour is, I always think, that actually at the end of the day it's simply about taxing the richest. I absolutely agree that those who do well should pay, but they pay upwards of 50%. And I guess if you're looking at the numbers of people who are successful who are leaving this country, you've got to be very careful that you don't alienate them. Take your point, though. George in Dundee, thank you very much indeed. We asked if the Talk lot, just a text somebody sent in, were in power, who will get what job? Mike Graham, Minister of Plankery. I completely agree. I like this. Becca. Alex Phillips for Prime Minister. OK. Big Kev Home Secretary. MG Chancellor. Very, very good. Michael with money. I'm in the Justice Department. Yeah, you're damn right. You're all going to jail. Peter Carball, sending back to the Northern Ireland office. Couldn't agree more. Achoo! 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Hello to Steve in Stoke. Right. We are going live to Westminster, to the lobby. Theo Usherwood is there. How are you, mate? You all right? No, you can't hear a word. Hello? No, he's just looking at me like I've landed from...
Jeremy, yes.
Oh, you can? Well, get your head up. How are you, son? It's not the greatest line in the world, is it? Are you all right?
No, it's a central lobby in the middle of Parliament, between the House of Lords and the House of Commons, and the reception is a little bit ropey, but I'll do my best.
All right, we'll get through it as quickly as possible. Staggering news in the last hour, my friend, that the government is offering a further concession, and this dreadful view of the Disabilities Minister, Stephen Timms, basically standing at the dispatch box and begging his backbenchers to vote tonight in favour of this and stick up for Starmer, removes the PIP element. What's the bloody point of the welfare bill anyway?
There isn't one. In short, is completely caved in to their backbenchers on every single aspect of this legislation to try and reform the welfare system. And for your listeners at home wondering about what's coming next, well, I can tell them. The Chancellor is going to have to come back with £5 billion worth of tax rises in order to make up the difference, because the government has caved in to the backbenchers who didn't want to see welfare reform. They'd already made one concession last week to try and stave off the rebellion, bring it down from 126 Labour MPs who were opposed to what they were planning. So basically only new claimants would face a reduction in their payment. Then, of course, they thought...
All right, listen, it's not your fault. I don't know who thought that was going to work. Maybe he could he go outside so that we can get an update? It'd be quite interesting to get this. Maybe somebody could say he could go outside, because patently the signal isn't great, which doesn't make it great. But just to repeat the news, welfare bill vote tonight from 7. Full coverage with Kev O'Sullivan from 7 o'clock. And just to explain what I was just trying to say there, so desperate is Starmer's government, and I mean desperate, that the Disability Minister, Stephen Timms, who's doing a sort of review of the whole thing, they've already conceded that, right, stood up no more than an hour ago and said, we'll drop the PIP thing, which is what's caused everybody to be angry. And so you look at it and you go, this is just going around in bleeding circles. What started off as a sort of flagship bill, right, for this government, has become a watered-down, embarrassing series of U-turns, which for many people questions yet again the authority, the intelligence, the sense of power of anything to do with our Prime Minister seems to be losing on a daily basis. 0344 499 1000, text to 8722 even. This is Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. So the reason we brought you Theo Usherwood, we're trying to, is because obviously that big important vote on the welfare bill is from 7 o'clock. To give you an idea, and then Kev will run through with the results of it as it happens. We're just having some technical problems. It's called life. I'm going to send him to stand on the roof of the Houses of Parliament with his phone above his arm with a wire, and hopefully it's only 2025. Nothing works. It's all gone to poo. Anyway, we'll do that as best we can. All the technical people are frowning. Oh dear, that didn't sound very good. Listen, I'm used to it. It doesn't work. 0344 499 1000. This next guest has become somewhat of a feature. He's now got new aftershave on, I can smell. It's interesting, isn't it? In a short space of time, John Lucas, the night news editor, the night crawler, from The Sun, who's now called Sarge, is garnering a huge female gathering. How are you, my friend?
Very well, thank you.
Women are now hanging outside the news building going, "When's Sarge coming in? We love him."
Really? I haven't spotted them, but maybe, yeah.
No, well, it happened. Thank you so much indeed. You're here again. Tomorrow's newspaper, fantastic as ever, The Current. Britain's small boat crisis has smashed records. 20,000 illegals in the last... So far this year, actually, in 6 months, the fastest surge ever seen. The Sun leading on this. All the gear, no idea.
Yeah, that's it. So I think we'll get the... it's definitely crossed over 20,000 today. I think tomorrow we'll get the precise figure, but that is 44% higher than this time last year. So... You know, we've done stories before, and what's actually going on here? Is it something directed by Putin? You know, but whatever the issue is, I think what maybe gets forgotten, people don't really, you know, haven't remembered or, you know, is that we're paying the French, British taxpayer paying the French nearly 500 million quid to put on extra patrols, to...
I didn't know
jeeps.
this. I mean, I've always thrown that figure out of 500. The equipment that money buys, ladies and gentlemen, includes jeeps and planes. And the French authorities, you see them. They just sat there smoking a galois going, "No problem." That was my French impression. And we're giving them this money. We're talking about saving money and putting disabled people in trouble with PIP, and we're giving 500 billion or million pounds to the French, who are doing absolutely nothing with it.
That's it, yeah.
See, that's the difference between John and I. Jody's just come in. I've got tea. He's got water, because he's a body to absolutely... I mean, it's all going on. It's all very healthy.
Yeah, but night
it's
goggles...
red already, look.
Night goggles, drones, all this sort of equipment.
Why are we giving them that money, John?
Well, I mean, they say they've got issues that they can't, for instance... they can puncture a boat if it's on land. As soon as it's in the water, they can't do anything to it.
Why is that?
But these gangs, it's the French rules apparently, but these gangs, they've got taxi services that will start somewhere on a canal or a river, so they're running rings around the French, and we're going to have pictures in the paper tomorrow. It's going to wind people up.
I don't think the French care. I think the French are taking the money and just turning a blind eye. And the old thing is, and listen, we've said it many, many times, and people find it, some people attack me online and go, that's outrageous. If I was an illegal migrant, I've said it until I'm blue in the bleeding face, right? I'd bring my wife and kids with me if I was being bombed, right? When I got to the first country that there wasn't an Exocet landing on me head, I'd go, oh, this is quite nice. If I got to France and they went, you can have a tent and a baguette, and then somebody goes, oi, mate, why don't you come over here? We'll give you a hotel, we'll give you a car, you can go to a wellness retreat, we'll give you Pilates lessons, we'll do your teeth, we'll just wipe your backside forever. Sod the British, you'd go, I think I'm going to England. You'd take the gamble, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Well, there needs to be a slightly different approach to this, and Macron's going to be having this state visit next week because I mean,
is he coming next week?
He's coming, but the other element,
smack him in the chops again.
Well, yeah, that was a very weird. That was a weird thing when that happened.
I think she was telling him off.
Maybe
she used to be his teacher.
Yeah,
you'd know all about that sort of dominatrix thing, wouldn't you, son?
Yeah,
he's going red again.
But we'll see. We've got lots of pictures tomorrow, essentially showing the French with all of our equipment, our funded equipment on the beaches, not being very effective at all, and the migrants just being able to get on the boat and come over here and eventually sort of add to this record-breaking total.
It's a brilliant, brilliant lead. All the gear, no idea. The next story, quite serious, and I didn't want to do it earlier today until now because the Sun will do it in the right way. 3 former senior staff at the hospital where nurse Lucy Letby murdered 7 babies and attempted to kill 7 others have been arrested on suspicions of gross negligence and manslaughter. All 3 suspects worked on the senior leadership team at the Countess of Chester Hospital between 2015 and 16 and were bailed after being questioned on Monday. The arrests come after an investigation into potential corporate manslaughter at the hospital was opened in 2023. This is a really, really difficult subject, and, you know, kids died.
Yeah.
What do we know about this? Because there are people, including very respected politicians like David Davis, who I've known a long time, who are absolutely adamant that this is a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah, well, that's right. So, but what these arrests don't have any effect on are Lucy Letby's conviction. So she's, you know, what she's been convicted of, they will stand. But I suppose potentially, if prosecution comes, obviously got to be fairly careful because proceedings are active here.
Absolutely.
If a prosecution does come, it will be another trial. We'll hear more and more evidence about exactly what's happening. I mean, the broad brush strokes of this are that colleagues of Lucy Letby repeatedly raised concerns about her. We know that there was an internal review done after her arrest, which set out these 14 opportunities that she could have been suspended earlier. These bosses didn't take action.
Right.
In some cases, the whistleblowers were made to apologise to Lucy Letby. Now, obviously, you know, there are different viewpoints on the conviction, but as you say, something was going desperately wrong in that hospital. So this is going to be another
trauma,
very likely potential prosecution where we're going to hear more.
How traumatic
evidence
for the people who lost kids. Terrible. Again, but covered brilliantly tomorrow. Lucy Letby, that twist. On a lighter note, worth a few Quidditch. Film characters such as Harry Potter could feature on new banknotes under plans to promote the best of British culture. Brilliant. That's what we've got. Somebody said to me once, it's true, the Italians have opera, right? The Spanish have flamenco dancing. We've got Weight Watchers. Do you know what I mean? That sums up Great Britain, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, well, look, I think this could be a good one for...
who would you put? This is a great thing for 20 minutes. Don't have a go. Who represents Britain and should be on a banknote? Mike Graham.
Exactly.
Get his chops on Mike Graham on the 50, on the nifty MG.
Exactly. Mike Graham could do very well. I think let's keep... At the moment, we've got Winston Churchill on the 5. Or I think let's keep Churchill.
Yes.
But also, we've got Jane Austen on the 10, JMW Turner on the 20.
Who's JMW Turner?
A painter.
Whatever.
And Alan Turing on the 50. But
who?
Alan Turing, the Enigma code chap.
Brilliant. I think Mike Graham on the 50. What are we talking about? British culture. I like you said. James Bond. Oh, actually, I have a story about that. 8722, start your message with the word talk, the 50, the 20, the 10 and the 5. Whose head would you put on it for British culture? This is in the Sun tomorrow.
Yeah, this is great, and I think it's a good one to weigh in on because they're talking about, well, look, should we have Harry Potter? Should we have Bobby Moore? There's also going to be that little window where we could end up with some sort of quite, contentious ideas. We could have some very woke ideas creeping in. It's a good one for the talk.
What, Bob Villan or something like that? 87222. Start your message. Mike MG on a nifty. Who's on a 20, a 10, and a fiver? I mean, if Mike's on a nifty, O'Sullivan's going to be on a fiver, isn't he? To be honest, just a little note. But listen, it'll be interesting. Let me know what you think. 87222. And then, which is brilliant, Jack the Flipper. What the hell's this all about?
Yep, you thought it was safe to go back in the water, not around Aberystwyth.
Listen, I went to Aberystwyth once. Have you been to Aberystwyth?
No.
Wow. It was closed. It's not... Yeah, go on. A serial dolphin.
A serial... Yeah.
What is a serial killer dolphin? It's not attacked people, is it?
It's not attacked people yet, but it has killed a... it attacked a juvenile dolphin 3 months ago, and what it did, it gets under them and it tosses them out of the water repeatedly.
Sorry, I do apologise. Right, this is where...
Maybe there's another way I could have phrased it.
Sorry, so major dolphin tosses, if you're just tuning in, tosses baby dolphin not off, but up in the water.
Yeah, until it dies. And
well, that ended that attempt to smile through that bit, yeah.
And it's more recently, it's now killed a shark.
It's killed a shark?
Yeah, the smooth-hound shark. So this is off of... he's part of a pod that lives off New Quay in Cardigan Bay. And they were all... These killings were caught on camera by a local dolphin watcher. This is Sarah Wire. She'd previously named this dolphin Anakin.
Anakin?
As in Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars.
Oh, my God, this is getting more...
Who goes on...
I thought that's what you took when you had a headache.
It's
that's an Anakin. What?
Who then obviously goes on to become Darth Vader, mass murderer. So
you need to get out, Sarge.
It's an evil dolphin.
This poor dog. I mean, is it an evil... I remember there's a great... And I'm going to get it wrong, but it was a Michael McIntyre sketch when he said he was in Australia and they went, do you want to come in for a swim, Mikey? And he went, no, because you've got sharks. You know, because at some point they could just come out of the sea and bite my arm off, you know, in their habitat. So Jack the Flipper. So people are now searching for this poor dolphin.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
what's going to happen to it?
Well, I don't know if it can be rehabilitated in some way. Dolphins are, when you actually look into it, they're quite scary animals. They can be very aggressive and they
now you're not reading the room. You're doing a Starmer on me now. Most people have got, I want to swim with a dolphin.
Yeah,
lovely dolphin.
Just not this one.
No,
not this one.
Stephen Redgrave on the £10 note, says James in Barnsley. Why? I mean, he won 7 gold medals. Yeah.
It's a great
Bobby
Olympian.
Moore's a good shout.
Yeah.
Shearer's a mate of mine. He'd think he should be on it, but no, I'm not having that. Who's an iconic... James Bond's got to be on there, hasn't he?
But which one? Which one would it be?
Who's the best? Oh, I haven't got time.
It's got to be Roger Moore. It couldn't...
No, you can't say Roger Moore. He used to sleep with women and drink martinis and smoke a cigarette. You can't do that. You've got to be politically correct. Drink Diet Coke, not smoke, because that'll kill you, and not sleep with anybody, because that's apparently wrong. God, that was quite cynical, wasn't it?
I know, but...
I think, Sarge, you should be on the note, right? The latest talk sex symbol. You're loving it, by the way, aren't you? What does the wife say? She doesn't listen?
She doesn't listen to me.
No. As my old man said, there's only two... No, I'm not going to do it on air. Thank you very much, Steve. You're a legend. So tomorrow's newspaper, fantastic. Online from 10 o'clock tonight. Out tomorrow. All the gear, no idea. We're still giving the French 500 million quid and they're doing absolutely nothing to stop this migrant. 44% up on last year. 20,000 already in 5.5 months. A twist to that Lucy Letby murder conviction. 3 suspects who worked on the senior hospital team at the Countess Chester Hospital have been arrested. More on that. And they're looking... the Sun's great tomorrow. Get 87222. Who should we put... film characters such as Harry Potter could feature on new banknotes under plans to promote the best of British culture. Nigel Farage on the 50, says Reese. It's Alan Turning, not Adam. It's Alan Turing, not Adam, John in Rugby.
Oh, I got that wrong. Apologies.
Don't be so picky, John in Rugby. He's not called John, he's called James. I'm joking. Jodie on a 50, worth every penny, says Jim in Cambridge. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, all right, Jim. You need to get out more. Starmer on the 1p. By the time you received your wages, that's all you're left with. Delish from Elstree, good one. 40 minutes to 7. John Lucas, thank you very much indeed. The current bun out tomorrow, fantastic. Grab it and online tonight from 10. And are you back tomorrow, Sarge?
I'm off tomorrow.
I'm off tomorrow, mate. Well, you can do it from home. Don't be. Where's your loyalty to this show? Do you know what I'm saying? You're building up a following, and now you're becoming a little bit picky, aren't you? Well, you know what we'll have next, Ryan, don't you? I only want to work 2 days. Oh, I only do 3. Back in 3. Yeah.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe it.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 10 minutes to 7. This extraordinary spectacle we're watching unfold. We're going to go back to Theo Usherwood inside Westminster, but I'm just watching. Stephen Timms, who's the Disabilities Minister, is literally on his feet in the House of Commons, begging his backbenchers. Real dissension in the ranks. People shaking their heads and shouting out. This is his own party. This 5 billion saving, they've already dropped the PIP, which was the main thing. So much is the opposition just to get this vote through. This vote takes place after 7 o'clock. And it will be covered live and exclusive with Kev O'Sullivan. People are gazing at me. Why are they gazing at me? That's very weird. Let's go to Theo Usherwood. Theo Usherwood, political commentator, live in Westminster, but apparently not in Westminster where we couldn't hear him, but somewhere we can. Theo, how are you, my friend?
No, I'm just across the hallway and the line is holding. I'm just on my mobile phone. The technology wasn't working before. Apologies. But we're in a good place, Jeremy, because the government has caved. It's now in hot to its backbenchers. What we're seeing, extraordinary scenes in the House of Commons, a few yards from where I'm standing talking to you. Stephen Timms has basically had to gut his own government's legislation, complete cave-in, and now they've got to find that £5 billion from somewhere else. And ultimately, Jeremy, it's going to be tax rises for your listeners in the autumn. Chancellor Rachel Reeves, she predicated her whole mandate at the spring statement that she could save the nation money. This ballooning welfare bill expected to hit £100 billion by 2029 just for out of work sickness benefits She promised to cut it by £5 billion a year, and it's not going to happen because the rebellion on the backbenches, we had one last Thursday where they said they weren't going to accept it. We thought the government had actually done enough to keep those backbenchers on side, but throughout today, that rebellion has gone up again, it's expanded again, and faced with defeat in the House of Commons, Stephen Timms has had to basically cave in again and basically grant this concession whereby any changes to the PIP won't take place until his review has happened, and that's in consultation with disabilities charities. It's a complete mess.
Let's just dip in. Hold a second. Drop that from Theo. Let's just dip into Stephen Timms. He's having a hard time, quite rightly too. Let's have a listen.
Give way to the Honourable. Thank the Minister. I had to come here today with the intention of voting against the government on this bill. I have to say that when it comes down to the removal of Clause 4, which everyone at home I'm sure will be delighted to know, so Clause 5, which I'm sure everyone at home will be delighted to know completely withdraws PIP from the scope of this bill and consequently there's nothing to vote on. But could the Minister give me some comfort by confirming whether or not the Timms review is going to be taking place within a spending envelope?
Minister.
What I can assure him is that the review is not intended to save money. That is not the purpose of the review. The review is to get the assessment right and to make sure we've got an assessment which will for the future. I need to make a little more progress, because as a number of members have highlighted in the debate, my honourable friend the member for Clwyd North, my honourable friend the member for Southampton Itchin, a key step in this bill is the first ever permanent real terms increase in the standard allowance of universal credit. Actually, it's the first permanent real terms increase in the headline rate of benefit for decades. And the Tory party, of course, is against it. They froze benefits time and again. They created these work disincentives and mass dependence on food banks, which this government is determined...
By anybody's standards, you'd have to say it's like a rabbit in the headlights. He's being heckled, Theo, by his own backbenchers. They're shaking their heads, they're asking questions. The most important thing to say, I know you're going to be here throughout the evening with Kev O'Sullivan, right, is as he closes that debate, a flagship policy of this inept government, who seem to go from disaster to disaster, has been stripped bare of anything that they said that was going to happen. Tax rises are the only way to recover this money. And again, I'll ask you what I asked somebody earlier, pal. Starmer and his government don't seem to have what I call political antennae. They don't seem to have to smell a PR disaster if it was right under their noses, whether it's pensioners or farmers or veterans or waspy women. This is just another example of not reading the room. This is his own party. He's got a 180-seat majority. It's a year on Friday. This man's a dead square. He's a dead man walking, isn't he, Theo? He's got to be.
Yeah, he's in significant trouble. He's squandered, you would think with the majority of the size that the Labour Party has, that they would be home and dry, but he's managed to squander any goodwill that he has on his own backbenchers, and he's been humiliated by them, Jeremy. If he can't get this legislation through, then you only have to wonder, of course, what's going to happen next year if the local elections up in Scotland, in Wales, if he does bad, if Keir Starmer and Labour do badly then they're going to really start to look at whether actually he's the best man to lead this Labour Party. A year ago, we wouldn't have predicted it could have been this bad for Keir Starmer, but it's been worse than perhaps anybody who even watches political, everything that goes on in SW1 could have imagined. It got off to a bad start and it's still progressively worse. And he's been spending too much time at NATO, too much time at the G7, too much time rubbing shoulders with the likes of Emmanuel Macron. But
even that, Theo, but even that jumping in, I mean, the weekend, to admit in a newspaper, I got the welfare benefits thing wrong because I was too busy playing the World Statesman. The World Statesman that's being interviewed by Beth Rigby from Sky saying there's absolutely no chance. I spoke to Donald Trump this morning. There's no chance the Americans are going to invade Iran. And as a stealth bomber flew past his head and took off to bomb Iran. I mean, it's like the man just doesn't have the antennae to understand. People are watching this and they're going, This is an absolute shambles. Thea, we'll leave you there. I know the reception's not great, but we appreciate it. Stephen Tibbs there, you can see him closing the debate for the government. Kevin is here from 7. We will bring you that vote as it happens. So people just tuning in, and it might not be to a lot of you very exciting, but this is a significant piece of legislation in this government which has been watered down, concession after concession. And Kev, they've just dropped the entire PIP thing from the bill. This he's a dead man walking, isn't he?
What he's done incompetently, characteristically, he's turned this into a confidence vote in his authority. So he's desperate to get this welfare bill through by hook or by crook. He's pretty much now watered it down to nothing.
What's the point of it, then?
Nothing.
What's the point
There's
of
no
it?
point in it at all. But he thinks if he doesn't get this through, everyone will go, well, your authority's shot. His authority is shot anyway. And I'm hearing, who knows what will actually happen when push comes to the shove at the vote. But these rebel MPs still want to give him a bloody nose.
What's he got? He's got 170-something majority, so half of that, he'd be in trouble, wouldn't he?
Yes. Yeah, well, the maths, if 130 rebels vote against him, and then the Tories join up, and then all the other parties join, he'll lose, which with his ludicrously large majority is humiliating. But
the disability minister just dropped the PIP thing, Tim. It's a joke, man.
Well, the point is the bill has no point whatsoever. You've got to remember, Jez, that originally the government wanted to make 15 to 20 billion pounds worth of savings. Liz Kendall, the Work and Pensions Secretary, was basically told by all the lefties and the rebels, 15 or 20, you can forget about that. So she watered it down to 5 billion. The Tories and everyone, all the critics said, well, that's nowhere near enough.
Scratching
but
the
at
surface.
least it's something. Now it looks like yesterday it was down to 2 billion.
1.5.
Now I think it's down to 1.5 and falling. It is now a completely pointless bill. What you have to remember about this is there was a point to this. We are addicted to welfare. We spend a hideously too large amount on it. This was necessary. Now he's not going to get this through, so how do they raise the money? How do they raise the money in the future? You know what?
Tax rises.
Right,
I'm not going to ask you what's in the show. Faces, culture people on the faces of banknotes. Jodie on a 50, the Great British Train Robbers, interesting. British culture on the money. The Beatles, the Wombles, David Bowie, Doctor Who, and Kev O'Sullivan. Now, Kev, I'm going to ask you. I got sent through the post today a birthday present.
Oh yeah.
I suspect this is from you. This is a book entitled End of Life Care Goes Wrong.